Hi, it's Katrina. Did you miss any of the massive discoveries that came out of Egypt this year? Don't worry, here's a complete year-in-review compilation of the most shocking and amazing discoveries from Egypt. Here are all the mummies, treasures, and forgotten cities together into one epic video, so settle in and relive the magic of amazing Egyptian finds.
The second Sphinx found. The second Sphinx is real. The Great Sphinx of Giza was not alone in history. It had a twin. Egypt's tourism official Reda Abdel Halim told the press that a statue of almost identical size to the famous Sphinx was found by the pyramids. The statue originally stood about 210 feet high, extending over 45 feet long from its face to its tail. Halim said that researchers from Zagazig University examined the evidence and confirmed everything to be 100% legitimate. So then why hasn't anyone talked about the second Sphinx being found in more than 3 years? I'm not familiar with Zagazig University, so I'm not sure, but there could be other factors. What do we already know about the Sphinx? And why is having two Sphinxes so controversial? The Sphinx is a mythological creature with the body of a lion and the head of a human. The Egyptians are credited with creating the first Sphinxes, placing them around temples and tombs all over the place. The Great Sphinx was built during the reign of King Khafre from around 2575 to 2465 BC. This makes the Sphinx around 4,500 years old. It was a portrait statue of the king that has withstood the test of time. Not everyone agrees with this, of course. There is the Sphinx water erosion hypothesis, which, just to be clear, is a fringe theory. Some experts have suggested that the Sphinx only took on its current shape after it was damaged during the biblical flood. Biblical scholars believe the flood, or Noah's flood at least, occurred around 2350 BC. The pyramids and the Sphinx were so huge that the flood waters could not wash them away. At least one Sphinx survived, even though it was very damaged. Proponents of this theory argue that the erosion lines on the Sphinx resemble patterns seen in water-eroded rock formations, not normal desert weathering. The theory argues that the original Sphinx was significantly bigger and didn't have a human head. It may have been a colossal lion statue. Then, after the flood, a new Egyptian civilization rose from the wet ashes of the Nile River. The new Egyptians modified what remained of the Sphinx and carved it with a human head, keeping the rest of it a lion, like the original. So back to the idea of the two Sphinxes. In 2007, Egyptologist Bassam El-Shama published a study claiming that there was definitely a second Sphinx. A lot of Bassam's evidence came from actual Egyptian beliefs and ancient texts, so that's stuff you can't argue with. Bassam said that having two Sphinxes makes more sense when you know about the Egyptian belief system, which is based entirely on duality. The Egyptians did things in pairs, not in singles. Everything was symmetrical and balanced. Just look at the avenue of Sphinxes at the Temple of Luxor, each Sphinx statue paired with another. Then there are the pyramid texts, ancient writings that give us clues as to who the Sphinxes were truly molded after. Atum, the creator god, formed his son Shu and his daughter Tefnut into the forms of a lion and lioness. The creator god himself placed them on opposite sides of the universe as guardians. So it would actually make a lot of sense for there to be two Sphinxes instead of just one. More evidence of a flood? Archaeologists in Egypt have found something they are calling a first of its kind. When I show you what's in this 4,000-year-old burial chamber, you are going to be blown away. Archaeologists found a tomb containing the bodies of 11 men, women, and children. It appears to have been used as a family cemetery during the 12th dynasty, but that's not what's important here. What makes it unique is that no other tomb from this era has ever been found in this region of Luxor. The tomb was uncovered next door to the Temple of Hatshepsut and is the only tomb from the Middle Kingdom there. This wouldn't be as exciting if not for one other very important aspect of the ancient burial pit. When archaeologists started studying the wooden coffins, they were surprised to find flood damage. The coffins and the linen wrappings of the mummies had clearly gotten very, very wet at some point. It looked as if the whole tomb had been flooded, like someone forgot to turn off the bath water. Could this be a clue to a long-lost cataclysm that ravaged ancient Egypt, or just the Nile getting out of control? Much of the treasure in the tomb was still intact, but that's more of a testament to the amazing workmanship of the ancient Egyptians. Archaeologists recovered a hippo head amulet, a copper mirror with a lotus-shaped handle, and another mirror decorated with an image of Hathor. Hathor was the Egyptian goddess of the sky, fertility, and love. As for who was buried in the tomb, that's not the easiest mystery to solve. Researchers identified 5 female skeletons, 2 male skeletons, 3 children, and the rest are unknown. For a nation in a hot, sandy desert, Egypt has a few too many monuments and burial grounds that seem to have been soaked in a monster tidal wave from the ancient past. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments. The last temple of ancient Egypt. It was more than 3,000 years after the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza that the Egyptian gods exhaled their last sad breath. What you're about to hear is a story about the last functioning Egyptian temple and its terrible fate. In fact, you might already know what happened to it. The temple was built on an island founded as a religious sanctuary by the Kushites, one of the first foreign empires to seize control of Egypt. The Kushites conquered Egypt long before the Greeks or the Romans. The Kushites came from the cradle of Nubian civilization, far to the south of Egypt in what is currently the country of Sudan. The Kushites emerged as a mighty political force at roughly the same time as the pyramids were being built, around 2450 BC. Their empire was just as big and just as culturally rich as Egypt. It's sad that today, the Kushites are overshadowed by their neighbors to the north. Many people don't even realize the ruins of Nubia are home to hundreds of pure black pyramids. For a brief time during the New Kingdom, Nubia was taken over by Egypt. From 1550 to roughly 1070 BC, the Egyptians ruled both kingdoms. Then things flipped. In the 8th century BC, King Kashta of the Kushites became the king of Egypt. It was during this tumultuous era that the Philae temple complex began construction. Unlike most Egyptian temples that you find leaning against sand dunes, the Philae complex was built on a tropical island near the city of Aswan, an island that is rumored to have been the burying place of Osiris, or at least one of his burial places. The myth behind Osiris, the god of the dead, lord of resurrection, and master of the afterlife, says that his body was cut into pieces and buried across the world. One of those pieces was buried on Philae Island. Osiris only became god of the underworld after his sister/lover Isis collected his body parts and put them back together using magic. The Kushite rulers started building temples on Philae Island, but ultimately abandoned it. Most of the ruins that survive today were built during the Ptolemaic period, which began 300 years later. The Ptolemaic period was when Egypt was ruled by the Greeks after they were conquered by Alexander the Great. The age lasted up until the death of Cleopatra in 30 BC. It's worth noting that the temples of Philae Island are no longer on the island. When the Aswan Dam was constructed in the 1960s, the island was nearly submerged. The temples would have been destroyed. UNESCO and the Egyptian government worked together to dismantle and rebuild the structures on the island. About 300 years after the major temples were built on the island, Jesus Christ of Nazareth was crucified. Then, 300 years after that, the Edict of Milan in 313 made Christianity a legal religion in the Roman Empire. During this time, the Romans controlled Egypt. As Christians became the predominant religious force in Rome, they also became the predominant religious force in Egypt. Are you still with me? And in fact, most of the Mediterranean and Europe. Slowly, one by one, the pagan temples of the Roman Empire were abandoned or destroyed. Many of them were converted into churches, like the Pantheon in Rome. By 400 AD, there were very few pagan temples left in Roman-controlled territories. The last hieroglyphic inscription was carved into the wall of the last functioning temple in the year 394 AD. Some say ancient Egypt died with Cleopatra. Some say it died on Philae Island with the last hieroglyphics. The Philae complex had once been a labyrinth of temples dedicated to all kinds of gods. The last temple standing, known simply as the Philae Temple, was built in honor of the goddess Isis. It was one of Isis's priests, a man named Esmet Akom, who carved the last hieroglyphic inscription. After Esmet Akom, the knowledge of how to read and write hieroglyphics was lost. Nobody would understand them again until the Rosetta Stone was decoded in the 19th century. By some crazy miracle, the Philae Temple survived another century and a bit. It survived the fall of the Roman Empire and lasted until at least 527 AD. It was during the reign of Byzantine Emperor Justinian that all surviving pagan temples were ordered to be closed. Philae Temple was converted into a Christian church, and most of its inscriptions were chiseled off the walls. And now for a quick break, but first I want to give a big shout out and thank you to I Believe in Fairies and Greg for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Getting freaky in ancient Egypt. It turns out the ancient Egyptians were more into psychedelic drugs than archaeologists had ever expected. The Egyptians may have been doing more hallucinogens than those who went to Woodstock in the 1960s. It used to be assumed that Egyptians only partook in hallucinogens during rituals, but a very kooky artifact is now changing that narrative. David Tanasi is a scientist at the University of South Florida. David and his colleagues were studying a mug discovered at the Egyptian necropolis of Saqqara when they identified some serious chemical signatures, and some other chemical signatures that might be sort of illegal today. The mug is something I would love to have in my cupboard, and I'm sure you're with me on that. It's 2,000 years old and shaped like the head of Bes. It's like a fun mug you can get at Spencer's with your favorite character's face on it, but ancient and awesome. Bes was the Egyptian god of music, merriment, and childbirth. He was depicted as an unruly old man with a thick beard and sometimes wearing a ferocious lion mask. Bes was also considered a dwarf, like in a fantasy book, only his arms were really long enough that he could drag them on the ground. Weird gods aside, Davide and his colleagues identified the chemical signatures of the components that had once sloshed around in the mug. Nobody knows what the concoction was called or what it was really for, but trust me, it was gross. This mug contained a liquid mixture of alcohol, sesame seeds, pine nuts, grapes, licorice, and honey. That doesn't sound that bad, but listen to the rest of the ingredients. The mixture also contained human bodily fluids that I don't really want to talk about, and it was spiked with psychedelic drugs. Scientists are still trying to figure out how potent this concoction was. Did it give a mellow high? Did it make you drunk? Was it like a fully blown ayahuasca trip? Researcher Branko von Oppen at the Tampa Museum of Art suggested the drink may have been part of a ritual, perhaps even a childbirth ritual, one carried out near where the mug was discovered in the Bes chambers at the Saqqara necropolis. In other words, a pregnant woman about to give birth was whisked away to a graveyard where she guzzled a disgusting concoction that made her high as a kite. Then she gave birth in a chamber dedicated to a dwarf god who dragged his knuckles like an ape and wore a lion mask. For my lovely viewers who have given birth before, how does this ancient Egyptian ritual sound to you? Would you give it a try? Modified sheep. Mutant sheep! That's what's on the menu next. Archaeologists have discovered brutally deformed sheep skulls at an ancient Egyptian burial site that predates the pyramids. The hideous remains of 6 very big male sheep were found buried at a mortuary complex in Hierakonpolis. Normally, a few sheep skeletons wouldn't be newsworthy, but these sheep had majorly messed up heads. Scientists think the skulls could be the oldest example of human beings modifying the horns of livestock. Can you guess how old these deformed sheep skulls are? Researchers say they date to about 3,700 BC, more than 1,000 years before the first pyramids were constructed in Egypt. Scientists say the horns of the sheep were not oriented in their natural direction. Instead, the horns appear to have been directed upward, almost like pointy dog ears. Some sheep even had their horns completely removed. These days, livestock horns are modified just about everywhere you can find livestock, in nearly every single country. It's a common practice to make sure the animals don't gore each other or their handlers. The first farmers to start modifying horns have always been a bit of a mystery, but with these newly found skulls, scientists think they can trace it back to ancient Egypt. That's another win for the Egyptians. You can put one more tally next to the massive list of firsts that they have. The Egyptians appear to have been coming up with revolutionary ideas even before they started crowning pharaohs and building monuments. Would you buy a mummified falcon? How much would you pay for a mummified bird? If the answer isn't at least $89,660, don't even worry about it. That was the price tag on a rare mummified falcon that recently went on sale in Abu Dhabi. I will admit the bird is rare and kind of awesome. The mummy is complete in its original packaging, meaning its original wooden sarcophagus. It was sold by a private collector from Austria who picked it up while it was at an exhibit in France in the 1980s. Even in the 80s, you could purchase Egyptian mummies relatively easily. It was like buying bootlegged DVDs at a flea market in the 2000s. The mummy falcon is wrapped in delicate linen cloth. Its head is painted beige and black, but the main reason it's so rare is that its body is fully intact. Archaeologists find weird mummies all the time, but normally they're broken. An X-ray of the falcon showed its skeleton perfectly connected, each tiny bone where it should be. The only flaw is that the right wing of the animal is broken, but this might have been on purpose. Researchers believe the wing was broken when the falcon was offered up as a blood sacrifice. It dates back to the 26th dynasty, which was between the 6th and 7th century BC. As cool as the falcon and its coffin are, would you pay $90,000? The Screaming Mummy's secrets revealed. They call her the Screaming Woman Mummy because it looks as if she died in the worst agony imaginable. To be honest, she's kind of hard to look at. Maybe you can handle it better than I can. After almost a century of questions, scientists from Cairo University may have finally figured out why the Screaming Mummy has her mouth gaped open in a soundless shriek. The answer might surprise you. The Screaming Mummy was originally found on an expedition to the Theban necropolis in 1935. Her body was exceptionally preserved. She died during the New Kingdom era when the embalmers of ancient Egypt had reached the apex of their art. Her body was preserved using luxurious ingredients, things like frankincense and juniper oil. The mystery woman had been buried in the family tomb of a famous architect named Senenmut. He was an amazing designer during the reign of legendary Lady Pharaoh Queen Hatshepsut in the mid-1400s BC. Nobody knows the Screaming Mummy's name, but it's assumed she was a close family member. Professor Sahar Salim used all the technological advancements available to properly study the Screaming Mummy once and for all. One of the most useful tools proved to be CT scans, FTIR analysis, and electron microscopy. Tests revealed the Screaming Woman to be about 48 years old at the time of her death. Okay, but what about the screaming? Sahar's research showed that the Screaming Mummy's twisted face could be the result of a cadaveric spasm. When a person dies in moments afterward, sometimes their muscles become instantly rigid. It's almost like a post-death muscle spasm. When that happens, a person's face can become grotesquely contorted. This is most likely what happened to the nameless friend of Senenmut. It's a little disappointing because it's anticlimactic, but at the same time, it's a relief to know that the look of pure, unadulterated horror on the woman's face was not due to any physical distress. We can all be thankful for that. Instead, she could have died peacefully and then had the muscle spasm a couple seconds later. Her soul had already begun its journey into the Egyptian underworld. Noah and the Egyptian flood. Was Noah Egyptian, and did he build the ark using lost ancient technology? It's a question you may have never considered before, but now I bet you won't be able to get it out of your head. In some ancient depictions of Noah, he's seen as an old man chipping away at a log with a primitive axe. But there is no way Noah built an ark the size of a mountain by whittling away at some wood. Surely he had a bit of help. It's been suggested that Noah belonged to a primitive culture of nomadic herdsmen living somewhere in the Near East. But as we know, thanks to discoveries of places like Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, people in the Near East weren't that primitive at all. People in Turkey were building massive stone temples 12,000 years ago, and that's a fact. Isn't it possible that Noah belonged to the same mighty civilization that constructed the Great Pyramid of Giza? After all, the pyramid and the twin sphinxes predate the flood. Egyptians clearly had technology to build something magnificent like the Ark, so maybe that's exactly what they did. We know that the Sphinx might have flood damage on it, and that 4,000-year-old tombs have been found that were totally filled with water. Following this line of reasoning, doesn't it seem plausible that Egypt was hit by the flood mentioned in the Bible? Noah could have been an Egyptian architect who built a giant boat to try and save what he could of the civilization that was soon to be destroyed. The Bible says that a few generations after the flood, the Tower of Babel was built using incredible technology. The Tower of Babel reached so close to heaven that it offended God, and he tore it down. When you look at ancient Egyptian stonework, their giant sarcophagi and impossibly deep tombs, it makes sense that they could have built something like the Tower of Babel along with the Ark. The Bible could be talking about a real skyscraper. Maybe after the flood, people no longer had the technological means to tackle such huge projects. The pyramid, the Ark, the Tower of Babel, they could all be examples of lost antediluvian technology. Noah may have been the last pre-flood architect to design something amazing. What do you think? Life as a hunchback scribe. From hunchbacks to wrist pain, the toll of sedentary work is timeless. Prepare yourself for one of the most mundane ancient Egyptian discoveries ever. Mundane, but still relatable. It turns out ancient Egyptians suffered from something that plagues a lot of us today. Their posture sucked. Did you know that ancient Egyptian scribes suffered from the same physical ailments as modern-day office workers? New evidence has revealed that ancient Egyptians had poor posture at work. Scribes paid to record the history and mythology of the Egyptian kingdom paid for it with their bodies. If you work in an office or at home in front of a computer screen like me, you know it can take a serious toll on your body. Neck aches, back aches, jaw pain, finger soreness. Well, I haven't had that, but we've all been there. Even the Egyptian scribes did, whose bones were found riddled with arthritis. Scientists from the Czech Republic recently conducted a study of 69 people buried in Egypt's Abu Sir necropolis. The oldest of these skeletons dated to the time of our giant friend Sa'anakht in 2700 BC. The youngest were from 2180 BC. Even with 500 years of difference, the skeletons showed evidence of suffering from the same workplace injuries. Scientists took a hard look at their shoulders, necks, spines, and jaws. They identified hotspots of degenerative change. The pieces clicked into place when scientists realized the men were mostly scribes, because it says it on their tombs. These ancient Egyptians were hunched over papyrus all day, just like a software engineer is hunched over their computer screen, or someone making YouTube videos. The point is that for 5,000 years, human beings have been breaking their bodies in the name of education and entertainment. It appears to have started with the invention of the written word. Make no mistake though, ancient Egyptian scribes were highly respected members of their community. Literacy levels in ancient Egypt were low, so scribes were basically wizards with words. Wizards who suffered from strain on their spine from long hours of writing, along with stress on their jaw joints and carpal tunnel syndrome. And you thought that was just for hardcore World of Warcraft players. This is how the pyramids were built. Scientists have finally solved what some people consider the greatest mystery in archaeology. They found a lost branch of the Nile River that proves the Egyptians built the pyramids using boats. Ta-da! You're welcome. There are a lot of theories to explain how the pyramids were built. Some think the Nephilim may have had a hand in their creation. Giants could have been used as laborers to lift the humongous stone blocks into place. It's a theory mainstream scientists don't like, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Others believe the pyramids were built using levitation technology. The Egyptians may have figured out how to use sound waves to levitate stone blocks, making it easier to transport material. Physical evidence doesn't support either of those theories. The physical evidence shows that 4,700 years ago, there was a long branch of the Nile that ran 40 miles inland directly to the pyramids. And then it was lost. Scientists only identified this missing river a few months ago, buried under almost 5,000 years of farmland and shifting desert sands. The secret branch of the river went bone dry and was filled in by the Sahara. You might be wondering how it was even discovered if it was so effectively buried by sand. Researchers used satellite imaging and samples of the sediment to identify where the river once ran. The most shocking part might be how big it was. The river ran 82 feet deep and about a third of a mile wide. To give you some perspective, this branch was the same size as the main river is today, but 5,000 years ago, it was little more than a skinny byway. That should tell you everything you need to know about how much the Nile has changed since the days of ancient Egypt. The lead author of the study, Eamon Ghanem from the University of North Carolina, mapped and named the new branch. It is now called the Aramat, which is the Arab word for pyramids. Knowing that there was a water channel leading directly to the front door of the Great Pyramid of Giza makes its construction a lot more sensible. Egyptians didn't have to drag building blocks up and down sand dunes. They loaded them onto boats, and the boats dropped them off at the construction site. So there you go. Mystery solved.
You are not going to believe what they have found under the Khafre pyramid in Egypt. This groundbreaking discovery might just be the biggest of the century. I'm sure you've seen the underground structures that broke the internet last week, but just in case, let me fill you in. Italian researchers using satellite scans and radar pulses scanned deep inside the middle pyramid and found evidence of underground structures and tunnel networks. There could be an entire city underneath the pyramids of Giza. Using synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography, or SAR, they have found what look like 8 vertical cylinder-shaped structures aligned perfectly in twos, extending more than 648 meters below the pyramid. That's almost half a mile. But wait, below the 8 vertical cylinder-shaped structures, they found even more unknown structures that go 4,000 feet deeper. That's more than a mile. 4 pairs of enormous cylinders that go deep down into the earth with some sort of coiled structure around each one, which could be a path or a tunnel of some kind. And this is just the beginning. Are you excited? I'm excited. Not only that, at the very base of the pyramid in the center, they have found 5 stacked chambers, which are identical in size and shape as the king's chamber of the Khufu pyramid, the one next to it. These are made with huge, absolutely massive blocks of red granite brought from hundreds of miles away and stacked very carefully. Okay, so there are 5 chambers in the center of the pyramid and then 8 massive hollow cylindrical structures that go deep, deep down into the earth. They could be shafts or pillars or wells. We don't know because we can only see what the scans are showing. And what's under that? Even more. The cylindrical structures dropping deep down into the earth go into 2 square chambers or empty spaces, which are 80 meters by 80 meters wall to wall. And then beyond that, scans show evidence that there are even more structures that go on for another 2 kilometers, interconnecting under all 3 pyramids and go further under the Giza plateau. There is so much going on there, the team said there could be an entire hidden city below the pyramids. Can you believe that? An entire city hiding below all of that sand, hiding just below one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. A press release described the findings as groundbreaking, and if true, could rewrite the history of ancient Egypt. One thing to keep in mind is the raw scan versus the 3D digital images. This is just an interpretation of what the scan could be showing. While they are fun, don't read too much into them because they aren't necessarily accurate. But the raw scan data images from the SAR scanning is very interesting. It is definitely showing some kind of complex underground structure with multiple levels and tunnels. These discoveries challenge the long-held belief that the pyramids were just royal tombs. What about the theory, were the pyramids energy conductors? Did they harness the Earth's natural energy? Are the pyramids themselves the capstones for underground structures? These are the questions that everyone's asking. Before we get too carried away, let me try to clarify some things because there have been so many things coming out, it's hard to tell what's what. Okay, let's take a quick breath. All of this came out in an academic article written by Filippo Biondi, Armando May, and Corrado Malanga. Remember their names because they're going to be popping up a lot in the next few weeks as more information comes out. They presented their findings at an Italian conference earlier this year on March 15th. And then the word spread like wildfire. They were not exactly expecting all of this news to go wild so quickly, and they want to present their findings to the public in English in a way that everyone can understand. It has been officially translated to English now, and the 4-hour presentation should be up on YouTube if you want to watch the whole thing. YouTuber and researcher Trevor Grassi is friends with the Italian team and contacted them directly to try to clarify what's been put out there and find out even more information since everything has been so crazy.
In an interview with Johanna James, he explains that he shared the abstract of the article with permission of the researchers on his Facebook page, since there was going to be a conference with over 900 people on March 15th. It wasn't anything confidential. Grassi says the information is not made up, it is not a hoax, and we should get more confirmation of what we are seeing in the scans in the coming days. The team will be breaking down the technology they use and explaining the images. Using the same technology, they are going to scan and map the entire area of the plateau over the next year or so, however long that takes. They are focusing on the middle pyramid first. Some people have been confused saying it's the Great Pyramid, but it's not the Great Pyramid, it's the middle one called the Copper Pyramid. All three of the pyramids have connections on the deeper levels, so they want to scan all of it. How did they do it? So was all of this from the same paper that they published in 2022? Apparently it's pretty different. The piece Filippo Biondi and Corrado Malanga published in 2022 in the scientific journal Remote Sensing discussed finding hidden rooms and ramps inside the pyramid of Khafre, along with evidence of a thermal anomaly near the pyramid's base. But now they have shared this new abstract along with images from their new paper that's going to be coming out. And that's what's been causing all of this confusion. As always, there will be people who won't want to believe what's happening, but the team will soon be explaining concerns coming at them from all of the skeptics. This synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography, remember, this is the SAR technology they use to get all this information, is very new, so they are going to be explaining the entire technical process. Biondi says he will have no problem defending his tech. This technology has been used in other fields before, like volcanoes and other earth sciences. Filippo has adapted it to archaeology. It's a satellite-based technology, so the team didn't need on-site access. They did not get permission from the Egyptian government because they didn't need it. This is an independent project, so it was not officially recognized by the Egyptian ministry. Filippo created a new type of software capable of interpreting data provided by the satellites. He developed this software to interpret it for use on these mega famous archaeological sites. You've probably heard of LiDAR before, so how is SAR different? I'll try to tell you quickly because I'm not a laser expert, but basically LiDAR uses laser light to generate 3D point clouds and is great for mapping terrain and finding objects. The problem is, normally these radar waves aren't great at going through solid things. They just bounce off the surface. So you can see the outside of something, but not what's inside. SAR is the new method created by Filippo that uses microwaves and seismic data he can get from satellites to also look at surface characteristics and anomalies. But the good thing is that it is not impacted by the weather. Even on a cloudy day, his tech works. Filippo and his team figured out a clever trick with the Great Pyramid in 2022. They noticed that tiny movements, like the kind you get from background seismic waves, are constantly happening in the pyramid. They used those movements to see inside. It's like instead of just bouncing waves off the surface, they were listening to how those tiny shakes changed as they went through the pyramid. And it worked. They got these super detailed 3D pictures of what's under and inside the pyramid. It's like the pyramid became see-through. They could see stuff that no one has ever seen before, like hidden rooms and structures. The team used a bunch of radar images from Italian satellites called Cosmo SkyMed. Basically, they took those images and used their special software to analyze those tiny movements, turning them into a 3D map of what's inside. They're basically using the pyramid's own little shakes to reveal its secrets. This new method eliminates the need for on-site access since it requires no equipment. So it also bypasses the need for on-site access permits and avoids media censorship. The completely independent team operates without ever setting foot in Giza. Pretty wild, right? Other projects have scanned the pyramids before. I've told you about the Scan Pyramids project that used muon detection. The Scan Pyramids project famously found big voids within the Great Pyramid of Khufu, announced in 2017. This project also found hidden spaces, but the difference is they needed to place sensor plates in locations like the subterranean chamber or the Grand Gallery to sense the spaces between that and the sky. They had to physically be there, get permission, and then place the equipment in and around the pyramids.
In 2023, Scan Pyramid found a 30-foot-long hidden tunnel near the pyramid's main entrance. According to Mustafa Waziri, Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities chief, the tunnel might have been built to lighten the load on the structure. Basically, the tunnel is ancient engineering magic to keep things from collapsing. But could it also be hiding something even bigger? A secret chamber, maybe? That's the big question that researchers are asking as they continue their scans. From 2021 to 2023, a Japanese research team, including members from Higashi Nippon International University, Tohoku University, and the National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, did work with the Egyptian government. They used ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity tomography in a royal cemetery next to the Great Pyramid of Khufu. They found an L-shaped anomaly 6.5 feet underground. It appeared to be 33 feet long. There are anomalies and structures underground. We just haven't had the technology to find them before. The debate. The fact that this SAR pyramid scan was not done in conjunction with the Egyptian authorities is causing some problems. But because it was non-invasive and mostly used satellites, the Italians didn't really need permission. As soon as this new information hit, experts immediately raised concerns. Dr. Zahi Hawass, famous renowned Egyptologist and Egypt's former Minister of Antiquities, called the claims completely wrong and fake news. The team's paper in 2022 was not picked up by the media, which tends to happen since it was not released by the Egyptian government. There are a lot of politics involved when it comes to new information about ancient Egypt. There is also evidence that the Egyptian government imposes restrictions that can affect independent researchers. Even Human Rights Watch has reported that this crackdown is so intense it is damaging progress. There is not a lot of academic freedom for research. Others, like Professor Lawrence Conyers, a radar expert at the University of Denver, said it is not possible for the technology to penetrate that deeply into the ground, making the idea of an underground city a huge exaggeration. There could be small structures and shafts and chambers under the pyramid that existed before the pyramids were built, because this place was clearly important to ancient people. Just like how the Mayans built temples over the entrances of caves or caverns like cenotes, the Egyptians probably did the same thing. Egyptologist and historian Flora Anthony wasn't buying into the hype either. She said something seemed off, so I looked up the original source, read through it, and realized the paper had nothing to do with the images or claims being shared in the media. Turns out the article isn't peer-reviewed. But to be fair, the article isn't out yet. The team just presented their findings at the conference, but they're still working on it. Their article from 2022 was peer-reviewed and was the first time they used this technology. They also found the same void that was found by the Scan Pyramids project. The project's spokesperson, Nico Ciccolo, who has a YouTube channel, mostly in Italian, shared a new video of the team discussing the research that has yet to be published in a scientific journal. Most of it is in Italian, but you're welcome to check it out. They are still working on it. But Flora says the people behind this aren't scientists. One is a UFO researcher who believes aliens are interdimensional parasites that hijack human souls. The other writes conspiracy books about a lost pre-dynastic Egyptian civilization and recently promoted a so-called harmonic investigation of the Great Pyramid using technology he claims to have patented. So, who are these researchers really? Project leader Corrado Malanga is from Italy's University of Pisa, and he is no stranger to controversy. He is an academic who has conducted research and published articles in international scientific journals. He is also famous for being a ufologist. He has appeared on many shows about aliens, where he has discussed his decade-long career of studying UFO sightings in Italy, and also alien abductions. Researcher Filippo Biondi specializes in synthetic aperture radar, or SAR imaging. He has recently left the University of Strathclyde in Scotland and has now fully committed to developing SAR and has his own project, Harmonic SAR. His technology will be key to finding all kinds of hidden stuff all over the world. He says he is more than ready to defend his tech and the team's findings, and that the team prioritizes sharing knowledge over monetization, unlike some people. Armando May is an Italian Egyptologist and author who also has done research on the pyramids of Visoko in Bosnia. He regularly writes for the website Ancient Origins and has appeared on many TV shows. He says his goal is to get people excited and curious. He wants his audience to continuously ask questions as the first step toward knowledge. I like him. In 2022, their paper showed 20 new structures that were previously undetected by radar. And not surprisingly, the Egyptian ministry has of course not commented on the paper since they weren't involved. There is no question this technology will revolutionize archaeology. Remember when LAR or LiDAR came out? Since then, researchers have found over 200 cities in the Amazon. Why not Egypt? There are at least 5 or 6 known underground structures in Egypt that are interconnected with tunnels. If we could just see inside, the curiosity is killing me. The possibilities. Corrado Malanga is in the same school of thought as Chris Dunn and Nikola Tesla, who believe the pyramids were some sort of energy technology. He believes the pyramids are much more than what meets the eye. The team suggested that the cylinder structures could be supporting the pyramid. Malanga said, "We did calculations and saw that the Khafre pyramid is incredibly heavy, and to hold it up, it needs a solid foundation. Otherwise, it will sink. These cylinders may have been access points to get underground." The image also included a complex luminous structure with distinct vibrations, which they believe is an actual underground city. These researchers have been inspired by others who have come before them. William Brown, as early as 2006, funded ground-penetrating radar scans at 9 locations on the Giza Plateau, including along the Sphinx Causeway and near the Great Pyramid. A GPR scan shows a tunnel or a chamber going directly under the copper pyramid. Researchers believe that tunnel or chamber almost certainly connect into these newly revealed structures. Many researchers want to look deeper into the pyramids because they believe they are part of something bigger. The Great Pyramid of Giza has been shown to focus electromagnetic energy inside its hidden chambers. I'm not just saying this to get your attention. It's been confirmed by scientists. Researchers have identified the remarkable electromagnetic properties of the biggest pyramid in Egypt. The structure is able to concentrate electric and magnetic energy by funneling the energy into unseen chambers beneath its base. The pyramid could theoretically store pockets of energy, converting itself into one gigantic battery. Scientists think if this effect can be recreated on a nanoscale, it could lead to a new era in technology. Scientists could use what they have learned from the pyramids to make more efficient sensors and solar cells. Christopher Dunn believes that the Great Pyramid was a power plant or an electron harvester. He suggests the shafts within the pyramid were used to channel microwaves and that the pyramid was designed to resonate with the Earth's vibrations. He believes, along with Graham Hancock, that the precision and advanced techniques used by the ancient Egyptians means they had tools and knowledge way more advanced than we thought. But is this what the Egyptians intended more than 4,000 years ago when they built the pyramids? I thought the 481-foot megastructure was made as the eternal resting place of Pharaoh Khufu. Maybe that was only one part of the pyramid's purpose. Dr. Andrei Evolukin was the scientific supervisor and coordinator of the recent research into the Great Pyramid. He and his team looked into the relationship between the pyramid's shape and its ability to focus energy. The team, consisting of scientists from the ITMO University in St. Petersburg, Russia, built a model of the pyramid. Then they tested it to measure its electromagnetic response to stimuli. Their model showed that wave energy is absorbed rather than scattered when it hits the pyramid. The results showed that the hidden chambers beneath the pyramid's foundation could easily harness energy, but so could the chambers that allegedly contained Pharaoh Khufu and his wife. Most archaeologists will tell you the pyramids were built for pharaohs to chill out in the afterlife. And while it is true that the biggest pyramids, like those at Giza, don't have royal mummies, probably because they were snatched thousands of years ago by tomb raiders, that doesn't mean that 0 bodies have been found in pyramids. Some pyramids have definitely had human remains turn up. You'd think if these were straight-up tombs, at least one pharaoh would still be hanging out there, right? But a lot of the kings and important people were buried somewhere else, mostly over in the Valley of the Kings. This has led some researchers to suggest that the pyramids were in fact technological structures, possibly power generators. It's not just a wild guess either, there is scientific proof to back it up. For example, sound vibrations and electromagnetic energy potentially generated by underground water channels beneath the pyramids could have been a source of electricity. The shape of the pyramid and its materials may have amplified cosmic energy, an idea that Nikola Tesla himself had before his untimely demise. This theory started with the idea that the pyramids must have been used for something more important than just storage space for royal bodies, and eventually it was proposed that they could have been some type of massive energy generators. How? Well, according to the theory, the structure and materials of the pyramids make them perfect for conducting and channeling electricity. For example, quartz crystals line the chambers inside the pyramids. And if you didn't know, quartz is excellent at conducting electricity. Then there's the smooth white limestone on the exterior, which could have acted like insulation, keeping the energy inside. It's like the ancient Egyptians built a giant battery on purpose, as if they knew exactly what they were doing. But the theory gets even stranger. If the pyramids were power plants, the Queen's Chamber may have acted like a central hub, sending energy through the passageways that worked like conductors. Some even claim that the northern shaft was a kind of transmitter, sending out microwave signals all over the planet. Were these monuments providing ancient wireless energy all over the world? Maybe. Take that, Wi-Fi. Supporters of this theory point to the granite beams inside the pyramids. They believe these huge stones aren't exactly necessary for holding up the structure, so they must have been put there for another reason. Maybe they had something to do with the pyramid's supposed energy generating abilities. And then there's that eerie story from the KGB. Yes, the Russian Secret Service. After investigating the pyramids, they supposedly said there was a magnetic repulsive force coming from the rocks. But does this prove that the pyramids were energy generators? Not exactly. Before you start imagining Egyptians with glowing light bulbs, most experts are quick to shut down this theory. While the pyramids do show some electromagnetic properties, there is not really any evidence that they ever worked like a massive power plant. Scientists do agree that the energy levels are far too low to do anything significant. So, were the pyramids really energy hubs? Probably not, but who knows? Maybe in the past they produced a lot more energy than they do now. If they were giant generators, what do you think they were powering in ancient Egypt? Does all of this sound crazy? Maybe. But let's not forget that mainstream science once laughed at the idea of black holes and quantum theory. Now, the challenge is separating science from, let's say, philosophical ideas. Corrado Malanga's ideas relate to physics, stone manipulation, density, and potential technologies. His ideas align with beliefs about energy technologies, but putting personal ideologies aside, the team is focusing on just the data. The team is going to present a watertight scientific document that focuses just on the scan. Trevor Grassi says it's important to contain our excitement and separate the data from the theories. Let's not lose our cool. Okay, we're trying. Filippo Biondi has experience with this type of tech from other projects, so these guys know their stuff. But we can't just throw out crazy claims without more proof. But it is fun to speculate. And this new technology and scans is pretty sci-fi stuff. The Italian team is going to continue their work, and next up, the search for the Hall of Records. The Hall of Records is a legendary place, a hidden chamber said to be beneath the Great Pyramid or the Sphinx, containing vast amounts of lost wisdom and knowledge about the ancient world. The team is hoping to fund an archaeological expedition to be able to go in person, but now it's hard to say what will happen because Egypt is not too happy. This mystery has captured the world's attention and is changing our understanding of the planet. I think it's okay to go a little crazy, and I don't blame the team for teasing some exciting details before presenting all of the information. After all, what's life without a little mystery? You can keep up with the team on Nicole Chicolo's YouTube channel. This is an ongoing story, so if you have more information, be sure to share it with everyone in the comments. I would love to know your thoughts about all of this. Was the pyramid really just a tomb for a pharaoh? Happy researching!
The true origin of the Sphinx. What if nobody made the Sphinx?
What if the world's most iconic, most mysterious, most alluring monument was shaped by nothing but wind and rain? A small group of lab coat-wearing scientists over at NYU have a spicy new theory that shakes up everything Egyptologists thought they knew. For centuries, Egyptologists agreed on one thing. They all believed that the Sphinx's face was carved by expert stonemasons. The face of the Sphinx clearly wasn't made by wind. It would be like saying Mount Rushmore's faces were made by natural erosion. That's crazy talk. The debate is not about the face, since that is clearly visible, but the body. How did the massive lion torso come to be? Enter NYU's Applied Mathematics Lab. Lee Fristroff and his team decided to get experimental, like Mythbusters meets National Geographic, using water to simulate desert wind, because why not cosplay as Mother Nature with a garden hose? They ran an erosion test on clay mounds. What happened? They accidentally made a baby Sphinx. No chisel, no masons, no tools at all. Just physics and fast flow. Nature carved its very own Sphinx without anyone giving it directions. Now, these scientists suspect the Sphinx was already cat-shaped 5,000 years ago. When the Egyptians showed up, they noticed the uncanny resemblance and carved a head onto the cat-shaped rock. But wait, it gets weirder. The NYU team isn't the only group of scientists trying to understand the mysteries of the Sphinx. Robert Scotch, a geologist who has been ruffling feathers since the 1990s, says the Sphinx is actually 12,000 years old. Not 4,500 like mainstream scientists say. Then, some Ukrainian geologists took that number and cranked it to insane levels, claiming that erosion patterns show the Sphinx could be 800,000 years old. But back then, humans weren't even around. At least we weren't. Homo heidelbergensis was around, but I don't really know if they were making sphinxes. The Ice Age was in full swing, so what, were early hippos and saber-toothed cats roaming around this rock formation? Their answer is maybe. Another theory states that the Egyptians built the Sphinx using vibration technology. Because do you know what's better than a forklift? Sonic levitation. Some theorists believe ancient Egyptians used vibrations to float pyramid blocks around like they had telekinesis. Swedish scientist Olof Alexandersson even said sound could nullify gravity, which, if true, raises the question, where are our anti-gravity speakers? We can barely get Bluetooth to work. What really cranks up the mystery, though, is this idea that a lost archive could be buried right under the Sphinx. Several laser scans have shown an anomaly right under the Sphinx that might be showing a large chamber of some sort. Legends have been swirling for centuries that the lost knowledge of our ancient ancestors is hidden in a room called the Hall of Records. Theories abound about what exactly could be hidden in the Hall of Records. It could contain the true history of humanity, knowledge of ancient technologies, spiritual wisdom and universal mysteries, and even the history of Atlantis. Perhaps it's a cave full of old scrolls like the Dead Sea Caves. Which theory do you like the most? The reason so many people think there is a Hall of Records hiding under the Sphinx is thanks to mystic Edgar Cayce. He had several visions that he shared in the mid-20th century. The idea of a Hall of Records spread like wildfire because we are obsessed with lost knowledge and the mysteries of ancient civilizations. Hello, that's why you're here, right? Legend goes that Greek philosopher Solon went to Egypt and went exploring down under the Sphinx with a mysterious high priest. There, he found the story of Atlantis, which Plato would later make famous. The Hall of Records is a concept based on psychic readings. Or is it? Robert Scotch, the same guy who said the Sphinx is 12,000 years old, allegedly found a rectangular cavity under the Sphinx using sonar scans in the 1990s. But just as things got interesting, the Egyptian government said nope and shut the whole thing down. To make matters even more suspicious, scientists have already proven that there is indeed a tunnel under the Sphinx. In 1989, a team of Japanese researchers from Waseda University, led by Professor Sakuji Yoshimura, rolled into Giza with fancy equipment and discovered a tunnel beneath the Sphinx's left paw. The tunnel ran downward at an angle, heading in the direction of the Pyramid of Khafre, like some ancient subway to secrets. And then nothing. The Egyptian authorities came in like, cool story, now pack it up, and kicked them out of the site. The Japanese scientists never got to continue. No one has ever been allowed to see where the mystery tunnel leads. The government said it was to protect its structural integrity, but what do you think? Other researchers met the same fate, including Egyptologist Matt Growling. Matt stirred the pot even more by claiming that the secret door to the Sphinx's underground world had been discovered 2 centuries ago and quietly shipped off to the Louvre Museum in Paris. Locals have whispered for generations that the Sphinx is just the welcome mat, and the real party is underground, a hidden chamber possibly located between the paws or inside its head. The recent Star Pyramid scans may be showing just that. The hidden structures recently found under the pyramids have everyone asking, what's really down there? But Egypt refuses to let anyone inside. They take their job as guardians of history very seriously, and honestly, can you blame them? Laborers buried in the pyramids? Pyramids for the people? Egypt's fancy tombs may have been home to more than just the pharaohs. Had you been alive 4,500 years ago, you may have been able to secure a spot in the most glorious burial ground in the world. New research is changing history in a big way. The pyramids used to be thought of as VIP real estate for pharaohs with golden funerary masks and names like Amenhotep the Totally Divine. Well, not anymore. Archaeologists digging around the ancient Egyptian colony of Tombos, in what is now northern Sudan, found the skeletons of common laborers buried in pyramids. The same back-breaking, sun-scorched people who helped build the pyramids were then buried inside them. But was it done on purpose with honor, or was it a way to hide the occupational hazards of working there? Let's take a look and then let me know what you think. Researchers from the Netherlands and the US took a look at these skeletons and spotted wear and tear on their bones. It's the kind of wear you get from decades of manual labor, not from lounging on gold couches while being fanned with palm leaves. These people were working their butts off and their skeletons to prove it. What's amazing is that they were buried alongside nobles, scribes, and other elite members of society. So the researchers realized they had been buried there on purpose. Why were the rich mixed with the not so rich? One tomb belonged to Pharaoh Siamun of the 21st dynasty, and yet there were laborers buried in the same zone. Some of the laborers' tombs had funerary cones, fancy jars, and the kinds of decorations you'd expect from people who never touched a shovel in their life. Before you ask, the answer is no. The laborers didn't commission these pyramids themselves. According to researchers, elites like Pharaoh Siamun built them for their family and their most trusted staff. Were laborers really that trusted by pharaohs to be buried alongside them? Maybe not in the rest of Egypt, but Tombos was not your average ancient Egyptian town. It was a colonial outpost with a very relaxed vibe. Egyptians and Nubians lived side by side here, shared culture, and didn't stab each other as much as they did everywhere else. It was a mini utopia at the farthest edge of Egypt's southern territory. Researchers even said that Tombos had low violence rates, healthier people, and relatively low stress. It was the kind of place where a high-ranking official might tip his mason with more than just beer. Maybe eternal burial privileges. This discovery challenges the dusty old idea that Egypt's social classes were strictly segregated, even in death. In Tombos, people broke the mold by sharing their tombs. Could this be proof of early egalitarianism? A sweet retirement perk for good service? Or just pharaohs being generous landlords in the underworld? And now for a quick break because it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Matt Raiola and Infinity Quest for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching and spending time with me today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. The origin of Egypt. One of the biggest, most burning questions in all of archaeology is this: when did ancient Egypt become ancient Egypt? Scientists can date the pyramids, the tombs, the cities, but when did Egypt start? And how did it start? How long were people living on the Nile before they started building pyramids? A team from the University of Oxford recently stopped guessing and started dating. Radiocarbon dating, that is. They teamed up with computers and ancient bones to build a timeline. And what they found might just leave the history books asking for a rewrite. Egypt's first king named Aha, the same sound I make when I Google something and find out I was right all along, took the throne around 3100 BC. Aha means the fighter, by the way, which is surprisingly cool for a name that's basically a statement. Before this new study, historians thought early Egyptians took about 1,000 years to go from farming lentils and sandals to forming a state with borders, bureaucracy, and temple politics. But now, the new research says it was more like 3 to 4 centuries. Lead researcher Dr. Michael D. said Egypt didn't just form, it launched itself into statehood like it had something to prove. Unlike Mesopotamia, where agriculture dragged on for a few thousand years before kings showed up, Egypt went straight from farming to forming god-kings. Now let's meet the first pharaohs. Thanks to their clever dating strategy, combining carbon-dated hair, bones, and old plants with archaeology and computer modeling, the team managed to get the early royal roster in order. It all began with King Aha 5,100 years ago. Then came King Der, who ruled for 50 years. And after him was King Jet, Queen Merneith, then Den, Anedjib, Semerkhet, and Ka'ah. If you haven't heard of any of these rulers, no stress, most people haven't. Professor Joanne Fletcher from the University of York called the research tremendously valuable, which is British for holy cow, this is a big deal. A sharper timeline means the experts can finally get a clearer picture of how Egypt became Egypt. Also, this tighter timeline reshapes how you and I see Egypt's early society. It was innovative, fast-moving, and went from zero to hero way quicker than other civilizations. They went from dirt farming to full-blown kingdom in about as long as it took us to go from Vine to TikTok or MySpace to Facebook. Maybe not exactly, but you get my point. The tomb of Ramses Commander. Now here's a discovery you've been waiting for. Or not, it might be a surprise. Archaeologists in Egypt just found a 3,200-year-old tomb that might have belonged to a high-ranking military commander, one who served under the ultimate battlefield boss, Ramses III. He's often credited as being ancient Egypt's last great pharaoh. The tomb, found at the site of Tel El Mashuta in the northeast, is more of a mud brick mansion than a grave. It's so vast you could rent the thing out. Inside, researchers found a gold ring engraved with Ramses III's name, a set of bronze arrowheads, and a plethora of other random grave goods. It almost definitely belonged to the commander of Ramses III's armies. This is a huge discovery because Ramses III was the one who fought the legendary Sea Peoples. This commander may have been at the forefront of the Bronze Age's greatest military conflict. In 1175 BC, Egypt was having a great time. They were vibing with all their gold and temples and glorious monuments. And then, to spoil their fun, the Sea Peoples showed up like uninvited guests and tried to invade. No one really knows who the Sea Peoples were. All historians know is that they were a major naval power. They wiped out the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the Mitanni. Everywhere the Sea Peoples went, Bronze Age civilizations collapsed. And then they showed up in Egypt. What did Ramses III do? He sat back and waited like a strategic genius. He let them sail right into the Nile Delta. Then he unleashed archers from the riverbanks and had Egyptian ships wreck the enemy's boats. It was a brutal ambush, and the Sea Peoples got served. They got served hard. Egypt survived. The military leaders who helped Ramses pull off the impossible counterattack likely earned themselves more than a participation trophy, like, say, a sweet tomb filled with war bling. Let's get back to the tomb. Professor Anthony Spallinger and Egyptologist David Warburton said that without an inscription confirming the identity of the tomb's owner, they can't say for sure that it was the chief military commander. However, the relics in the tomb all point to someone in the army, presumably someone in power. The excavation team is staying optimistic. They're convinced they have found someone who played a serious role in defending Egypt's borders when most of the Mediterranean world was crumbling like a Nature Valley granola bar. For now, the tomb is open, the mystery lives on, and archaeologists are playing the world's slowest game of Clue. When they learn more, I'll be sure to tell you about it on Origins Explained. And stay tuned because the story of the day is up next. The lost city of Nefertiti's daughter. You're grabbing a beachside falafel, the Mediterranean breeze in your hair, and little do you know, just a few feet beneath your sandals lies a secret. Beneath a rocky ridge west of modern-day Alexandria, archaeologists stumbled upon a whole ancient Egyptian town. See, it's not unheard of. Not just ruins, but a town buzzing with history, including a fascinating connection to Nefertiti's enigmatic daughter. This place is around 3,400 years old and possibly got its start during the reign of Akhenaten, Egypt's sun-obsessed rebel pharaoh. More on him later, so don't go anywhere. The site called Qam el-Nubus sits between the Mediterranean Sea and Lake Marut. For years, experts figured nothing exciting happened there before the Greeks showed up around 332 BC. Turns out, they were wrong. Sylvain Denon of the French National Center for Scientific Research said this was a planned settlement, complete with streets that drained rainwater like an ancient plumber's dream. You know a civilization means business when they design their city around waterworks. Even more fascinating is that the town had a temple built by Ramesses II, not to be confused with his successor Ramses III, who fought the Sea Peoples. Researchers found what appeared to be a military outpost with admin buildings and fortified walls. Put all this together, and what do you have? An ancient city lost to the sands. The most impressive item found so far is a fragment of a wine jar. It's got everyone's attention because the fragment is stamped with the name Meritaton. She was the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. She also may have been Tutankhamun's half-sister. Meritaton is one of Egypt's great mysteries because she was hugely important, but most of her life is shrouded in secrecy. It's believed she married Pharaoh Smenkhkare, who happened to be either her uncle or her brother, and scientists think she may have become Pharaoh herself, if just briefly under the incredibly long and hard-to-pronounce name of Ankh-Khepere Neferuaten. Go ahead and try to spell it. I dare you. Excavations are still ongoing, and no one is sure how big the settlement really was yet. They don't even have a name for the place. Some are wondering if it wasn't Meritaton's royal city or possibly one founded by her mom, Nefertiti. This is about as much information as is available right now, but at least you're all set for trivia night when the question of what was Nefertiti's daughter's name comes up. And for that, you're welcome. Now hit that subscribe button for more and be sure to tell your friends. Putting Ramses back together again. Ramses II sat on a wall. Ramses II had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Ramses together again, but archaeologists can, and they just did. Okay, let me explain my weird nursery rhyme remix. For almost a century, a statue of Ramses II has been awkwardly hanging out in the Egyptian desert, looking like the world's biggest and most broken action figure. Discovered in 1930 by German archaeologist Gunther Roeder, it stood headless about 150 miles south of Cairo. No one had ever been able to figure out where the top half of the gigantic statue was. The mystery went unsolved for 96 years. In March 2024, a team of Egyptian and US archaeologists found the long-lost upper half of the colossal Ramses II statue near the modern city of El Ashmunain. In ancient times, this place was called Khemnu. It was a big deal provincial capital during the Old Kingdom, and was later renamed Hermopolis Magna by the Romans. They were the original rebranders 2,000 years ago, changing the name of everything to something very Latin-y. Now let's talk size. The upper half is a whopping 12.5 feet tall, putting the full statue at 23 feet. And it's not just a big rock with a vague face. It's Ramses II in full pharaoh mode. I'm talking headdress, royal cobra, and enough ancient swagger to make Michelangelo's David look like a toy. When the archaeologists first spotted the statue laying face down in January 2024, nobody knew what shape it was in. It was like opening a 96-year-old time capsule and praying it wasn't just sand and disappointment. I have good news. Not only was the carving crisp enough to recognize Ramses' distinct facial features, but it also had traces of blue and yellow paint. Paint on a statue this old is phenomenal. Next, scientists need to reunite the top half with the bottom half, which is still chilling in El Ashmunain. Egyptian archaeologist Bassem Gehad already filed the paperwork for this long overdue reunion. If approved, and let's be honest, no one is saying no to the King of Kings, even 3,000 years after his death, the ancient ruler will finally be whole again. This will be one of the most amazing statues in all of Egypt. Before moving on, here are some bonus facts to impress your pals. Ramses II ruled for 66 years and fathered over 100 kids. Now that's what you call legacy. Unboxing a sealed pyramid. You know how sometimes you clean out your garage and find weird stuff you forgot you owned? Like all those random National Geographic magazines from the 80s? Well, imagine doing that, but instead of your high school yearbook, you uncover a 4,000-year-old sealed pyramid. And inside is absolute ancient chaos. Welcome to Dashur, Egypt, a desert spot already known for its 3 pyramids commissioned by Pharaoh Sneferu in 2600 BC. Sneferu went on a building rampage, constructing the Bent Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, and the Meidum Pyramid. And now archaeologists have found a new one. A brand spanking new pyramid, sealed up tighter than your mom's spaghetti in a Tupperware container you left in the freezer. Here's how it all went down. Quarry workers were doing their thing when they hit some suspiciously fancy limestone blocks. In came Dr. Chris Naunton, a British Egyptologist and walking encyclopedia of the ancient world. He led a team to check things out, and the Smithsonian Channel even rolled in to document it. When you're unboxing a sealed pyramid, you better do it on camera. What they found was a sealed underground chamber inside the ruins of the pyramid, unopened for 4,000 years. It probably had that new tomb smell and everything. Or old tomb, you know what I mean. Then when they opened it, oh boy. Instead of a serene royal resting place, they found a scene of devastation. Artifacts were trashed, burial objects were broken. It looked like a gang of raccoons got loose inside the tomb and trashed the place. But it was sealed. What the heck happened? The team suspects an inside job. It looks like the tomb was looted before it was sealed, like robbing your own house and then locking up and going on vacation. Dr. Chris Naunton called it an ancient crime scene. But who was the victim? Inside the jumbled chaos, archaeologists found a damaged canopic chest used in storing organs. With some high-tech scanning, they managed to read the faded hieroglyphs on the jar. It belonged to none other than Princess Hatshepsut. Before you start shouting, wait, the Pharaoh Hatshepsut? Hold your scarabs. This is a different Hatshepsut than the extremely famous one you might be thinking of. In fact, she is a completely unknown one. No records, no fanfare, not even a weird statue. But she had her own pyramid. Egyptologists are freaking out right now. No one has ever heard of this princess. There isn't a record of her in sight, but she had her own mighty stone triangle, and that's not something you come by often. Think about how many pharaohs didn't get their own pyramid. Historians think she may have lived during the 13th dynasty, a time when Egypt was in anarchy mode. The royal family tree was more like a royal tumbleweed, messy, tangled, and full of grudges. So an unknown princess had her tomb wrecked, robbed, and then sealed. Was it part of a royal power struggle, a posthumous political purge, or the ancient mortuary crew ripping off their dead boss? Let me know what you think in the comments. Life under the crazy pharaoh. Grab your sunscreen and some spiritual flexibility because I'm taking you to meet Egypt's most controversial pharaoh. He ruled 3,000 years ago alongside Queen Nefertiti. He was the father of Mary Taton, who I told you about earlier, and King Tut. He was also the pharaoh who woke up one day and was like, let's build a new city from scratch, just for fun. Oh, and I came up with a new god, and you all have to worship him. Seriously, this pharaoh didn't just flip the religious script, he flipped the whole kingdom. He shut down Egypt's house of gods like it was a discontinued Netflix show and replaced it with Aten, the sun god. Egypt went from dozens of deities to one single god, and Akhenaten wanted one city to match his one god. So he sent his workers to build it. And while they were busy doing that, he ordered the citizens of other cities to pack up and move. Now, modern archaeologists have uncovered the ruins of one of those abandoned towns. They found it near Luxor, close to famous monuments like the Colossi of Memnon. This forgotten city is called Soud Aten. It was once a bustling suburb. Kids played in the streets, bread cooked in ovens, blacksmiths pounding away on copper tools. Then, from out of nowhere, the pharaoh's guy showed up and told everyone to move. No goodbye party, no final sweep of the living room. People dropped their cowhide projects and bailed lest they be whipped furiously by the pharaoh's soldiers. Inside the ruins, archaeologists found what looks like an ancient town hall and possibly a police station. Even cooler is a little piece of technology that is sort of unbelievable. Many of the homes discovered in Soud Aten had built-in showers. Actual showers in which you could stand and clean yourself. Instead of going to the river or dumping a bucket on their head, they had real showers. Meanwhile, over in Europe, people were trying not to die from the plague because they were so filthy. Then there's the fish. Zahi Hawass expressed his bafflement at the discovery of a fish covered in gold. It was dug up completely wrapped in gold, like the weirdest mummy in Egyptian history. Someone took a perfectly normal fish and blinged it out for no apparent reason. Experts also found 500 statues of Sekhmet, the goddess of war and healing, who was one of the most famous Egyptian deities. Fierce and worshipped everywhere, Sekhmet's followers were likely a little sour about Aten telling them they couldn't worship her any longer. Maybe this is why so many statues were left behind. But what was Akhenaten's deal? Why change religion so profoundly on a whim? According to Yasmin El-Shazli, deputy director at the American Research Center in Egypt, Akhenaten wasn't inventing sun worship from scratch. His dad, Amenhotep III, already leaned heavily into solar theology. Akhenaten just took it and ran with it like a kid yelling, "It's my religion now!" Eventually, Akhenaten built a new capital for all his solar worshippers. It was called Tel El Amarna and was erected a full 200 miles south of Cairo. Akhenaten moved there with Queen Nefertiti, who was probably wondering if she'd packed enough sunscreen for this Aten-centric reboot. Everything started out okay and then crumbled into a complete disaster. The good times did not last. After Akhenaten's death, King Tut tried to keep the lights on at Aten City while doing a religious U-turn. But the city of Aten was promptly abandoned anyway by all the people who didn't want to move there in the first place. No big deal though. The young pharaoh fixed the mess his dad made. He had the capital moved back to Thebes, the multi-god pantheon returned, and Akhenaten's legacy erased faster than your browser history on the work computer. Temples to Aten were smashed, Akhenaten's name was scrubbed off monuments, and Aten worship was tossed into the "let's never speak of this again" pile. Now archaeologists have both cities to learn from. These two abandoned places prove that even in ancient Egypt, not everything was pyramids and perfume. Sometimes it was sudden relocations, religious rebranding, and a pharaoh with a new god who dis attitude. It is also a perfect example of how one powerful yet deranged man can completely sideswipe his own country. Akhenaten uprooted people from their homes, demolished religious institutions, and most likely crippled the economy while he was at it.
The Cannibal Hymn. Okay, brace yourselves because this is wild. The Cannibal Hymn is one of the creepiest things you will ever encounter in ancient Egyptian texts. Found scrawled on the walls of pyramids, these texts actually paint a picture of the afterlife as a pretty chill place for the pharaohs. But this one is straight up nightmare fuel. It basically says that King Unas, the last guy in charge during the 5th dynasty, around 2300 BC, not only becomes a god in the afterlife, but he also eats the other gods. Seriously, this isn't some metaphorical feasting. We're talking about devouring the hearts, spirits, and even the bones of other deities. Talk about a power trip. Unas' pyramid, located in Saqqara, is where this disturbing masterpiece was discovered. These texts weren't written on fancy papyrus, but carved directly into the walls. They are basically the ancient Egyptian version of a life insurance policy for the pharaoh, designed to ensure a smooth transition into the afterlife and give him a major boost in the divine hierarchy. Normally, these texts describe the pharaoh ascending to the heavens, becoming one with the gods. But Unas takes it to a whole new level. He's not just joining the party, he's taking over. The texts portray him as the ultimate boss, controlling the stars, the earth, and basically everything else. It's like he's running for president of the afterlife, and his campaign slogan is Unas, stronger than your gods. That is where the Cannibal Hymn comes in. Forget sharing power, Unas wants it all. He feasts on the entrails, the magic, basically the entire essence of other gods. The descriptions are pretty graphic. Can you imagine? Smashes bones and marrow, feeds on the lungs of the wise. Talk about a bad dinner party. Now, did this actually mean that ancient Egyptians were cannibals? Some early Egyptologists, like E.A. Wallace Budge, thought so. He believed the Cannibal Hymn was proof that early Egyptians had a taste for the divine and maybe a little too much human flesh. But most scholars today think that this is a little bit of a stretch. The truth is likely more symbolic. It's about asserting dominance, about showing that Unas is the ultimate power in the afterlife. He's not literally eating the gods, he's absorbing their power, becoming the most powerful god of them all. So the next time you think your boss is demanding, remember King Unas. Even in the afterlife, this guy wanted to be in charge. And now for a quick break, because it's shoutout time! I want to give a big thank you to Kaylee Twaka and Slimmy the MF for supporting this channel. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to join the Origins Explained family. Protective childbirth tattoos. Did you know that ancient Egyptians were all tatted up? It's true, and this was especially the case for mothers. Why? In ancient Egypt, tattoos weren't just for fashion purposes. They were symbols of protection, especially for women during childbirth. Back in the day, as men labored away in distant tombs, the women stayed behind in their villages, raising families and getting tattoos that acted like magical shields. This story came to light in 2019 when bioarchaeologist Anne Austin and her team examined 2 tattooed mummies at Deir el-Medina. This is an ancient village where workers built tombs for their pharaohs. Finding tattoos on mummies is rare because preserved skin is hard to come by. But looters, essentially ancient tomb raiders, unintentionally helped by exposing these remains, giving researchers a peek at what lay hidden for millennia. On the preserved hip of one middle-aged woman, Austin noticed something incredible: patterns of black ink that seemed to stretch across her lower back. I mean, I guess you could consider it a tramp stamp, but these weren't trendy designs like they are today. They depicted Bes, the protective god of childbirth, alongside a bulb linked to purification rituals. The second tattoo was harder to spot. Thankfully though, infrared photography revealed it hidden under centuries of wear and tear. The design included the Eye of Horus, an ancient symbol of protection, and another image of Bes, this time with a feathered crown. There was even a zigzag pattern that represented a marsh, cooling waters used to ease the pain of childbirth. And guess what? Tattoos were so popular in ancient Egypt that even clay figurines got in on the action. Decades-old clay figurines found at the site also appeared to have tattoos on their backs and thighs. Egyptologist Mary Liz Arnett re-examined them and suggested that these little statues were showing the same protective symbols. This further proved that tattoos played an important role in women's lives. Experts believe that these tattoos were like portable amulets, offering constant protection during pregnancy, labor, and recovery. Since childbirth was risky and often fatal, having sacred symbols of gods like Bes on your body probably gave women a sense of comfort and safety. These findings are also fascinating because Egyptian art rarely depicted pregnant women, making these tattoos a rare glimpse into real-life experiences. Sonia Zakarczewski, another bioarchaeologist, compared the tattoos to magical armor, imprinting the power of the gods directly onto the skin. While it's unclear how widespread tattooing was across ancient Egypt, Deir el-Medina gives us a clue into a unique tradition of body art that combined beauty with divine protection. Who knew that ancient moms were rocking tattoos thousands of years before modern trends? Would you ever get an Egyptian-inspired tattoo? Or do you have one already? Let us know in the comments. The Black Goo. Imagine this. You are digging up a priceless artifact, all dusty and glorious, and then splat! You are covered in this weird black gooey mess. Talk about a mood killer. It sounds really creepy, but this is the real-life story of the Osiris Shaft, a deep hidden structure under the Giza Plateau. This weird and puzzling substance has fascinated explorers and historians for years. So what's the deal with this black goo? Where did it come from? And why did the ancient Egyptians smear it all over mummies and coffins? Before we move on, why don't you pause the video for a moment and take a quick guess down below in the comments? First, let me set the scene. In 1998, famous Egyptologist Dr. Zahi Hawass rediscovered the Osiris Shaft. This underground chamber is located beneath the causeway that links the Great Sphinx to the Pyramid of Khafre. But when the excavation happened, no one seemed to mention the black goo found inside. Why not? Maybe they thought it was just some kind of natural seepage, or maybe they were trying to keep it a secret. Who knows? Either way, the goo turned out to be a bigger mystery than anyone realized. Interestingly, this isn't the only case of black goo showing up in ancient Egypt. Far from it. The goo has been discovered on high-status coffins, like the ones belonging to Tutankhamun and a high priest named Djedkhonsu F. Ankh. in case anyone asks. Try saying that 3 times fast. I bet even the ancient Egyptians had trouble saying his name. When Mr. Jed died, his coffin was practically drowned in black goo. We are talking liters of this stuff poured over him, filling every nook and cranny, as if sealing him off for eternity. This wasn't random, it was deliberate and ritualistic. But what were they trying to do? For years, archaeologists were stumped. But then Dr. Kate Fulcher and her team from the British Museum came along. Using fancy technology called gas chromatography mass spectrometry, they analyzed samples of black goo from coffins across Egypt. And what were the results? It turned out that the goo was a mix of plant oils, animal fat, tree resins, beeswax, and bitumen. It's basically ancient Egyptian cement, perfume, and glue all rolled into one. The ingredients came from all over. Some of them, like pistachia resin, were imported from Greece or Lebanon. Bitumen had a far more interesting backstory. Ancient Greek texts describe huge blocks of bitumen bobbing to the surface of the Dead Sea. People would row out, hack off chunks, and then sell them in Egypt. So now we know what it was made of, but why use it? The goo wasn't just practical, it was deeply symbolic. The Egyptians called their land Kemet, meaning the Black Land, a reference to the fertile soil that gave them life. Black was a sacred color tied to rebirth and the afterlife, so covering a coffin in black goo may have been their way of connecting the deceased to eternal life. Doing so sealed them off from decay and protected them on their journey to the afterlife. It was part of their spiritual toolkit, a way to ensure that the dead lived on forever, and clearly it worked. Pyramid power. Ever feel like the universe is trying to tell you something? Like maybe ancient civilizations knew secrets we are only just starting to uncover? Take the pyramids of Giza, for example. I mean, after decades of intense research, we still don't know that much about them. How exactly were they built? And perhaps the more important question is, why? Standing over 4,500 years old, these massive stone triangles are wonders of engineering. Some say they were tombs, but others, well, they believe that the pyramids were actually power plants. I know what you're thinking. Power plants? Like ancient batteries blasting electricity across Egypt? I guess. This theory started with the idea that the pyramids must have been used for something more important than just storage space for royal bodies. I mean, that's kind of boring, right? So it was proposed that they could have been some type of massive energy generators. How? Well, according to the theory, the structure and materials of the pyramids make them perfect for conducting and channeling electricity. For example, quartz crystals line the chambers inside the pyramids. And if you didn't know, quartz is excellent at conducting electricity. Then there's this smooth white limestone on the exterior, which could have acted like insulation, keeping the energy inside. It's like the ancient Egyptians built a giant battery on purpose. Like they knew exactly what they were doing. But the theory gets even stranger. If the pyramids were power plants, the queen's chamber may have acted like a central hub, sending energy through passageways that worked like conductors. Picture this. The pharaoh, chilling in their tomb, accidentally shorts out the entire power grid of ancient Egypt. Some even claim that the northern shaft was a kind of transmitter, sending out microwave signals all over the planet. Were these monuments providing ancient wireless energy all over the world? Supporters of this theory point to the granite beams inside the pyramids. These huge stones aren't exactly necessary for holding up the structure, so they must have been put there for another reason. Maybe they had something to do with the pyramid's supposed energy-generating abilities. And then there is that eerie story from the KGB, the Russian Secret Service. After investigating the pyramids, they supposedly said there was a magnetic repulsive force coming from the rocks. But does this prove that the pyramids were energy generators? Not exactly. Before you start imagining Egyptians with glowing light bulbs, most experts are quick to shut down this theory. While the pyramids do show some electromagnetic properties, there is not any substantial evidence that they ever worked like massive power plants. Scientists agree that the energy levels are far too low to do anything significant. So, were the pyramids really energy hubs? Probably not, but who knows? If they were giant generators, what do you think they were powering in ancient Egypt? Let me know in the comments. The gold-covered mummy. Discovering a new mummy in Egypt is always thrilling, but finding one covered in gold leaf? Now that's a treasure trove. That's exactly what happened in January 2023, when archaeologists unearthed a 4,300-year-old mummy at Saqqara, this sprawling ancient burial ground near Cairo. This was a perfectly preserved mummy, untouched for millennia, sealed within its sarcophagus longer than most civilizations have even existed. So who exactly was this golden mummy? The remains belong to Khafre, a man whose burial is now considered one of the oldest and most well-preserved non-royal mummies ever discovered in Egypt. But how did archaeologists stumble upon this incredible find? It was quite the adventure. They descended a 50-foot shaft into the sandy depths of Saqqara, venturing into the unknown. And wouldn't you know it, alongside Khafre, they uncovered 3 other remarkable tombs. Each tomb belonged to a prominent person. There was Khnumudjedef, a high-ranking priest and noble supervisor, a true VIP in ancient Egypt, even though his name wasn't that catchy. And then there was Mary, a palace official with the intriguing title of Secret Keeper. What mysteries did Mary guard? Was he the confidant of pharaohs, entrusted with their most sacred knowledge? Sounds like he probably knew some juicy gossip. And finally, there was Fetik, a judge and writer. Fetik's tomb wasn't just about him, though. It contained some of the largest statues ever discovered at Saqqara, along with pottery and other fascinating artifacts. Can you imagine stumbling upon tombs that have been hidden from the world for thousands of years? Who commissioned them? What stories do they tell? These discoveries raise more questions than answers. The Hidden Tunnel. Forget Indiana Jones. The real adventure is happening right now inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Inside the mighty Great Pyramid, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, a secret has been hiding for 4,500 years, until now. Now, thanks to some seriously high-tech wizardry, we are finally peeking behind the curtain. In 2023, experts armed with tools that would make even the most cunning archaeologist green with envy unearthed a 30-foot-long hidden tunnel lurking near the pyramid's main entrance. These guys weren't just messing around with a rusty old shovel and a map. Imagine, if you will, a team of modern-day Egyptologists turning the Great Pyramid into a giant X-ray. This isn't your grandfather's archaeology. It's a thrilling blend of ancient history and cutting-edge science. This Scan Pyramid project, an international team of experts, is using techniques like radiographic muons, basically cosmic rays that pass through stone, to peer into the heart of this colossal monument. This latest discovery, a tunnel detected right behind the chevron zone on the north side, has sent ripples of excitement through the archaeological world. Mustafa Waziri, the head honcho of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, believes the tunnel might have been built to lighten the load on the structure, a bit like an ancient air conditioning system for a giant stone building. But it could also be hiding something even bigger. Maybe a secret chamber, a forgotten treasure trove, a lost civilization? Okay, maybe that last one is a bit much, but you get the idea. This isn't the first time the Scan Pyramid project has blown our minds. In 2017, they stumbled upon a massive void, a discovery that made headlines worldwide. And in 2016, they found another hidden cavity on the pyramid's northeastern edge. These guys are good. Built during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, the Great Pyramid stands as a testament to the ingenuity of ancient Egyptian engineers, but we already knew that. The chevron technique used in its construction, layering stones to reduce pressure, is a marvel of ancient engineering and likely played a key role in creating these hidden spaces. But why does any of this matter? Besides being incredibly cool, these discoveries offer invaluable insights into how the ancient Egyptians built such a colossal structure with no modern tools. Plus, they boost tourism, which is a lifeline for Egypt's economy. So what mind-blowing revelations await us next? Let me know your guesses in the comments. The Unknown Queen. On the 100th anniversary of finding King Tut's tomb, researchers unearthed the tomb of a previously unknown queen. And not just that, they also discovered a massive collection of 300 coffins, 100 mummies, and tons of other artifacts. Talk about a day at the office. You go in expecting a routine dig, and bam! you've stumbled upon an ancient Egyptian megamole. The star of this story? Queen Neith, an Egyptian queen that no one even knew existed. For 2 years, a team led by Egyptologist Zahi Hawass was digging deep into Saqqara, and what they found amazed even them. Queen Neith has never been mentioned in any historical records. That means that her life and what she accomplished during her reign is largely a mystery. Queen Neith's tomb is just the tip of the pyramid, pun intended. Nearby, archaeologists uncovered 22 interconnected tunnels filled with beautifully decorated New Kingdom coffins dating back to between 1570 and 1069 BC. That's a big deal, because burials from the New Kingdom period weren't thought to be common in Saqqara before this. Each coffin is a work of art, featuring individual faces from men and women, scenes from the Book of the Dead, and the names of the deceased. Even the 4 sons of Horus, ancient gods who protected the organs of the dead, make an appearance. And get this, one coffin contains a mask of a woman made of solid gold. There is also a soldier clutching a metal axe, ancient figurines called ushabtis, and even pieces from an ancient Egyptian board game called Senet. The Egyptians loved their board games, and yes, they took them to the afterlife. The discoveries at Saqqara also include a pyramid believed to be dedicated to Queen Neith. So the mystery of this forgotten queen begins. What do you think she was like? Let me know in the comments. The Crocodile Heads. Let's take a step away from dusty old mummies and artifacts. Archaeologists digging in Egypt recently stumbled upon something way creepier in a 4,000-year-old tomb. 9 crocodile heads. Just the heads, mind you, neatly wrapped in linen. This bizarre discovery happened near the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut, where a team led by Dr. Patrick Chudzik had been digging since 2013. They were exploring the tombs of 2 high-ranking officials from the time of Pharaoh Nefertiti Mentuhotep II. A big deal back in the day. Can you imagine 2 guys with that name? Now, you'd think they'd find the usual Egyptian tomb goodies: gold, jewels, maybe a well-preserved cat or 2. But nope, just a pile of crocodile heads staring back at them. Actually, I think you can get the same thing in Florida. These weren't mummified whole like you might find in a sacred animal necropolis. Just the heads, chilling there in their linen wraps. Why only the heads? And what were they doing in a human tomb anyway? Were they trophies, religious sacrifices, or perhaps a bizarre fashion statement of the ancient Egyptian elite? Crocodiles were huge in ancient Egypt, linked to the powerful god Sobek, who was often depicted as a man with a crocodile head. So these heads were most likely offerings to Sobek, maybe a way to tap into his power and strength for the afterlife. But here's the thing, nobody really knows for sure. Surprise, surprise. Dr. Chudzik and his team think that these crocodile heads were like super exclusive VIP passes to the afterlife, only available to the wealthiest and most powerful Egyptians. You wouldn't find these in your average Joe's tomb, that's for sure. This discovery also highlights something archaeologists often overlook: animal remains. The team realized that even discarded bones can tell us a lot about the past. In fact, they even found crocodile mandibles in another tomb recently, suggesting this head-chopping trend might have been a thing among Egypt's elite. So while we still have more questions than answers, like how they chopped off the heads without getting chomped themselves, this find is a game changer. It's completely bonkers, and it's got archaeologists buzzing with excitement. Yellow Egyptian glass. A mysterious yellow glass, unlike any other on Earth, has been found in the Egyptian desert. Its origins? Out of this world. This glass, known as Libyan desert glass, is not only beautiful, but also has a story that reaches back 29 million years, thanks to a meteorite crash. This glass is fascinating. A piece of it was even used in jewelry found in King Tut's tomb. The mystery behind this glowing yellow glass has led to debates about how it was formed. Some thought it was created by a meteorite impact, while others thought it was caused by a space rock exploding in the air, an event known as an airburst. But recent research has shed some light on the issue. The team of scientists, led by geologist Aaron Cavazzi from Curtin University in Australia, took a fresh look at this strange glass. They had 7 pieces of it and used a high-powered microscope to study the tiny details. What they found inside the glass were zircon crystals, which have different structures depending on what kind of pressure they've been under over time. The analysis showed that some of the zircon crystals had once been a mineral called rhyodite. Now, rhyodite only forms under extreme pressure like what you'd get when a meteorite slams into Earth. But it doesn't form when a space rock just explodes in the air. This discovery led the team to believe that the glass wasn't created by an airburst, but by an actual impact. So no need to worry about huge explosions in the atmosphere causing glass to form all over the place. Phew, that's a relief. I mean, who wants to constantly worry about exploding space rocks turning the Earth into a giant glass sculpture? Although I wouldn't mind a few space diamonds. This may sound like good news for those who worry about asteroids hitting Earth. The discovery of rhyodite suggests that while big meteorite impacts are dangerous, they don't create the same type of disaster on the ground that airbursts might. Researchers haven't found a crater to match the impact yet, and they believe it could be hidden under the desert sands, but who knows where. The Big Void. What on earth is a massive void doing inside the Great Pyramid of Giza? That's what archaeologists would love to figure out. For over 4,500 years, this enormous space remained a secret, tucked away in the heart of the pyramid. It wasn't until 2017, when a group of international scientists started using cosmic ray detectors, that they finally found this vast chamber. Here's how they did it. Earth is constantly bombarded by cosmic rays, which are made of tiny particles, including muons. Imagine cosmic rays as tiny, spacefaring superheroes zooming around. When they hit a wall, they slow down, like they just ran a marathon. But if they hit an empty room, they're like, whoa, free space, time to cruise. And that's how the scientists knew that something was up. The researchers used muon detectors to spot these slowdowns and pinpoint areas where there were hidden spaces, like the gigantic void inside the Great Pyramid. The scientists used special detectors from Japan to confirm what they had discovered. And sure enough, a 100-foot-long cavity appeared right in the middle of the pyramid. Why had this room never been found before? You know how they say, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, don't judge a pyramid by its outside either. You never know what secrets are lurking within these ancient stone walls. Unless, of course, you have some seriously high-tech X-ray vision. According to archaeologist Carol Redmount, the void was in the middle of the pyramid, so it was never going to be uncovered without advanced tools unless it collapsed or something like that. So what's inside this mysterious space? That's the million-dollar question. Is it a secret treasure trove from the time of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Khufu? Or maybe it's part of the pyramid's burial rituals? No one knows yet. The muons only told the team there's a large room, but didn't give any clues about what's in it. Archaeologists like Peter Dare Manuelin from Harvard are careful not to jump to conclusions. There might not even be an entrance to this void, and it could just be an unfinished part of the pyramid that was sealed off long ago. However, some researchers like Redmount think it could be a version of the Grand Gallery, a passage that leads to the king's chamber, but sealed off for reasons we don't yet understand. That wouldn't be as exciting as treasure, but it would be fascinating for understanding how the pyramid was built. This discovery is just one example of how archaeologists are using cutting-edge tech to uncover the mysteries of the ancient world. Space archaeology is even becoming a thing, where researchers use satellites to survey sites from above. What do you think they might find? Let me know in the comments.
The hunt for Cleopatra's tomb. Where in the world is Cleopatra? The quest for the resting place of one of the world's most famous and charismatic rulers is heating up. Scientists might be closer than ever to finding the burial of the last great Egyptian queen. And it's mostly thanks to one very dedicated woman with a knack for shoveling holes in the desert. Dr. Kathleen Martinez and her team have found a tunnel system under Taposiris Magna that could be hiding the most famous tomb in history. Cleopatra VII Philopator was arguably the most politically astute ruler of her time. She was a survivor, a diplomat, and spoke many languages. She was highly intelligent and charismatic and made the most powerful men fall in love with her. Historian Harold Bloom once called Cleopatra the world's first celebrity.
Everyone all over the ancient world was obsessed with her, for good and for bad. Greek historian Plutarch described her as no supermodel, but her voice was so smooth it could charm the Romans right out of their togas. Her death is shrouded in mystery. The most famous account is that when she and Mark Antony were defeated by Octavian, Cleopatra was determined not to be humiliated and paraded through the streets of Rome as a defeated queen. She ordered her most trusted attendants to bring her a gift for the gods, a basket full of ripe figs. But hidden in the basket was an asp, a venomous Egyptian cobra and a symbol of royal power. She adorned herself in her finest royal robes and picked up the asp, which struck her in the chest. And so Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, met her end in 30 BC. Historical accounts indicate that Octavian allowed Cleopatra to be buried alongside Mark Antony. The big question is where? The general assumption is that their shared tomb is somewhere in Alexandria. The problem is that most of ancient Alexandria is underwater thanks to earthquakes, rising seas. But there is hope. French underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio has been mapping Alexandria's sunken ruins since 1992, pulling up statues, sphinxes, and columns. However, still no queen. She could be down in the watery abyss, but Frank hasn't found her yet. Then there is Zahi Hawass, Egypt's most famous archaeologist and part-time Indiana Jones. In 2006, he and Dominican archaeologist Kathleen Martinez started digging at Taposiris Magna, a temple outside Alexandria. Dr. Martinez, a former lawyer, got into archaeology because of a heated argument with her dad about Cleopatra's reputation. She was determined to give her justice. Kathleen quit her career in law and became an archaeologist. Convinced that Cleopatra had the foresight to pick a secret resting place, Kathleen bombarded Hawass with over 100 emails. When that didn't work, she flew to Egypt and basically cornered him until he let her participate in the digs. Persistence level? Queen Cleopatra herself. And now the team might be close. Taposiris Magna has yielded several significant findings that suggest it could be the location of Cleopatra and Mark Antony's tomb. Taposiris Magna was a temple dedicated to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and Isis, his sister and wife. Cleopatra was the embodiment of this goddess, and so Martinez thinks this would have been the perfect resting place for her. Martinez's team has uncovered various artifacts that have connections to the time of Cleopatra, including coins bearing her image, statues of the goddess Isis, gold jewelry, an entire cemetery with people who really wanted to be buried near someone important. But most importantly, Dr. Martinez has found a 6.5-foot tall, 4,300-foot long tunnel, roughly 43 feet underground at the temple. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities shared the find in a statement and described the tunnel as a geometric miracle. Martinez is continuing her quest to locate the ancient queen's long-lost tomb, and she thinks she's getting closer. She says that if there is 1% of a chance that the last queen of Egypt could be buried there, it is my duty to search for her. Revealing Nefertiti's face. Behold the face of Nefertiti, one of the greatest queens in human history. For over a century, an immaculate bust of Nefertiti has been hailed as one of the best masterpieces of ancient Egyptian art. It is so captivating that it earned Nefertiti the nickname, the Beauty of the Nile. Nefertiti's beauty was legendary with her refined features, elegant neck, and striking bone structure. But is this bust accurate? It is over 3,300 years old after all. Thanks to modern technology, researchers can now take a look and see exactly what she looked like. The bust revealed a secret. Nefertiti may have had a bit of an ancient facelift. A CT scan performed by Dr. Alexander Huppertz and his team at Berlin's Imaging Science Institute showed that beneath the smooth, flawless stucco exterior is a very different face carved in limestone. The famous bust of Nefertiti was altered from an original bust showing a woman with a slightly different face. The real Nefertiti, or at least the one carved in the stone originally, had wrinkles around her mouth, less prominent cheekbones, and even a slight bump on her nose. But in the final stucco layer, an artist smoothed out those creases, adjusted the cheekbones, and erased the nose bump. An artist over 3,000 years ago gave Nefertiti the ancient equivalent of a Photoshop airbrush,
I guess this proves that ancient beauty standards were just as ruthless then as they are now. Nefertiti's famous bust was discovered in 1912 by Egyptologist Ludwig Borchardt. It's been a star exhibit in Berlin ever since, but her presence in Germany has long been controversial. Egypt has repeatedly demanded its return, but the museum refuses, arguing that the bust is too fragile to travel. Whatever the reason, of course they don't want to give their best artifact back. Nefertiti was the wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten in the 14th century BC, and possibly a stepmother or even mother of King Tut. Dr. Alexander Huppert suggested that Akhenaten himself may have ordered the alterations to ensure his wife met the ideal beauty standards of the time. In between changing the religion of Egypt, he wanted to make sure his wife looked good. No matter what time period or where you go in the world, practically all artists in any royal court did this, making royals look more attractive than they really were. And we even do it to ourselves now with filters. It's easy. Beauty standards are as old as civilization itself, but I think we can all agree that even after 3,300 years, Nefertiti is still beautiful. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Gerard Cormican for this super thanks. It really means a lot, and we wouldn't be here without you. Be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family, because why not? What do mummies smell like? I never thought I would be talking about this ever. It's such a bizarre subject that you might not be able to stop thinking about it after this. Have you ever wondered what a mummy smells like? Have you ever wondered what a mummy smells like? Everyone knows that ancient Egyptians took mummification very seriously, but what if I told you that their embalming process didn't just preserve bodies, but also left behind some seriously fancy fragrances? A new study led by researchers from University College London has revealed that mummified bodies smell kind of amazing. Using cutting-edge chemical analysis and a team of human sniffers, which apparently is a real job, scientists have discovered that mummies give off scents that are woody, spicy, and even sweet. If you were imagining an old, musty tomb smell, think again. Mummies were practically marinated in high-end perfumes. You could spray some on yourself to impress your date. When they say, "Wow, you smell awesome," you can say the secret is the mummy wrappings. The research team examined 9 mummies spanning from about 1500 BC to 400 AD. They used gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, and even an electronic nose to detect the specific chemicals producing these scents. Scientists found a rich, complex mixture of natural preservatives used to keep these bodies in pristine condition for the afterlife. Preservatives like natron salts, coniferous resins, gum resins, spices, flours, animal fats, waxes, and vegetable oils. Ancient Egyptians didn't just embalm their dead, they covered them in perfume. Smell was a big deal in ancient Egyptian culture. Good smells equaled purity and divinity. The gods were believed to have divine scents, so mummifying the dead with luxurious aromas was their way of ensuring a VIP entrance into the afterlife. One of the coolest parts of this research is its potential impact on museum experiences. Imagine walking into an exhibit and instead of just seeing a mummy, you can smell what ancient Egyptian embalming smelled like. This is exactly what researchers plan to do. The team hopes to recreate the scent of a mummified body and use it to enhance museum exhibitions. Now that would be an experience. Would you buy a bottle of ancient mummy perfume? The ancient Egyptian gold rush. Move over, California gold rush. Ancient Egypt had the original gold mining boom, and archaeologists just hit the jackpot. After 2 years of intense digging, Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities has unearthed a massive ancient gold mining camp in the Saqqara Mountains, southwest of Marsa Alam. This isn't no small-time operation. It's a complex gold factory from 3,000 years ago. Think of it as the Wall Street of the Eastern Desert, except with way more pickaxes and significantly fewer stockbrokers yelling into phones. According to Dr. Mohammed Ismail Khaled, Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, ancient Egyptians had a whole system worked out for extracting gold from quartz veins. They crushed and ground the quartz, filtered the sediment in special basins, and then fired it up in clay furnaces to get that sweet, shiny gold. But wait, there's more! This wasn't just an industrial site, it was a fully functioning town. Excavations revealed workshops, ore processing areas, living quarters, temples, Ptolemaic-era baths, and administrative offices. No matter the century, somebody always had to be in charge of paperwork. Among the cooler discoveries were 628 ostraka. Ostraka are ancient sticky notes, fragments of pottery and stone with scribbled messages on them. The ones found at the gold mine feature writings in hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek. This mining camp was a linguistic melting pot, with ancient workers gossiping in 3 languages at once. No archaeological dig is complete without some ancient pocket change. Archaeologists also found bronze coins from the Ptolemaic dynasty, terracotta figurines, and even small stone sculptures of gods like Bastet and Harpocrates. Some of these sculptures were unfinished, meaning that some poor sculptor thousands of years ago got interrupted mid-project and never got back to it. But beyond all of these cool artifacts, why does the discovery of a mining camp matter to us today? Dr. Khaled said that Egypt was the gold capital of the ancient world. Discoveries like this one show just how rich Egypt was as the epicenter of luxury and wealth, even among the commoners. Why do you think Rome wanted it so bad? The forgotten, high-tech civilization of pre-Egypt. You know, the ancient Egyptians were incredible builders. They gave us the pyramids, the Sphinx, temples, and tunnels so massive they are hard to believe. But what if some of their greatest works weren't even built by them? For decades, mainstream historians have insisted that the dynastic Egyptians, meaning those who lived from 2500 to 1500 BC, used simple bronze tools and stone pounders to complete their masterpieces. They carved massive obelisks, statues, and temples out of granite, basalt, and quartzite, which are some of the hardest stones on Earth. How did an ancient civilization with no iron tools carve out these obelisks, precision-cut granite sarcophagi, and drill through solid rock with the skill of modern diamond-tipped tools? According to some researchers like Brian Forster, they didn't. These works could be evidence of a lost, highly advanced civilization that predated the pharaohs. Just to give you some context, Brian Forster is the author of 8 books and has appeared on Ancient Aliens 4 times. Let's start in Aswan, home to the infamous unfinished obelisk. It is a colossal chunk of pink granite that was abandoned mid-carving. Egyptologists claim that Queen Hatshepsut ordered its construction around 1478 BC. But there is just one problem. The obelisk weighs nearly 1,200 tons, which should have been impossible for the Egyptians to even conceive of moving. Plus, granite has a Mohs hardness level of 6 to 7, which means the dolerite pounders used by the Egyptians wouldn't have worked very well. It would be like trying to burrow through the floor of your prison cell with a wet sponge. Even if they somehow managed to carve granite with dolerite, how are they planning to lift the obelisk out of the pit? I'm talking about a stone here that weighs twice as much as the Statue of Liberty. Even today, with all our cranes and hydraulics, humans would struggle to move something this size. According to Brian Forster and Christopher Dunn, engineer and author of Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, the markings on the trench walls suggest that some kind of advanced tool was used to carve the rock, not primitive pounding stones. Christopher described the cut marks as horizontal striations that are typical in machining. In other words, the obelisk shows signs of mechanical cutting, not manual chiseling. Now let's head downriver to the Serapeum at Saqqara. This underground network of tunnels contains massive granite boxes, some weighing up to 70 tons, which Egyptologists say were used as burial sarcophagi for Apis bulls. But bulls weigh about 3 tons, and these granite boxes are much, much bigger than the bulls. The argument is that these boxes are carved with a level of precision that rivals modern engineering. They are even more impressive than the sarcophagi used to bury pharaohs, and royal coffins were definitely not 70 tons. What were these boxes really used for? According to Dunn, the accuracy of the cuts at the Serapeum at Saqqara suggests that the creators used machine tools rather than chisels. He argued that no known technology from dynastic Egypt explains this level of precision. Now let's go to Karnak, Luxor. Karnak is one of Egypt's most famous temple complexes. It's also a place where archaeologists have found giant drill holes in solid granite. Some of the holes are so precise and deep that even modern engineers struggle to explain them. In the late 1800s, Sir William Flinders Petrie discovered granite core drill samples that showed a spiral groove. It was blatant evidence of high-speed drilling. The feed rate of one drill core suggests that ancient Egyptians were cutting granite 500 times faster than today's best diamond drills. Let that sink in for a minute. 500 times faster than modern tools? If the dynastic Egyptians weren't responsible for these precision-engineered artifacts, then it must have been an even earlier civilization. One possibility is that an advanced culture existed in Egypt thousands of years before the pharaohs, using highly sophisticated tools and technology. Some researchers even suggest that these ancient builders were wiped out by a cataclysmic event, like the flooding of Atlantis, leaving behind only the stone monuments that the Egyptians later repurposed. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, has long been suspected to be far older than mainstream archaeology suggests, perhaps even predating dynastic Egypt. The Great Pyramid could be more than 5,000, maybe even more than 10,000 years old. What do you think about that theory? Let me know in the comments. The Missing Pharaoh. A new discovery is shocking the world. Scientists found the first tomb belonging to a pharaoh since they dug up Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. But that's only part of the story. There is another tomb that might hold even greater secrets. Move over, Indiana Jones. There is a new tomb raider in town. British archaeologist Piers Litherland and his team might have just hit the ancient Egyptian jackpot. A second tomb belonging to King Thutmose II. Apparently, one tomb just wasn't enough for this guy. How many graves does one king need? Litherland's latest find comes hot on the heels of his previous discovery. A tomb revealed over a century after Tutankhamun's tomb made headlines more than 100 years ago. But researchers didn't find much inside this tomb, just a few scraps of old paint. Litherland now believes that Thutmose II's real final resting place might be hidden under a 75-foot pile of limestone, ash, rubble, and mud plaster, which ancient Egyptians cleverly disguised to look like part of a mountain. That's some next-level camouflage. Here's the deal with the first tomb that was found and is still making headlines. Archaeologists think it was Thutmose's original tomb, which flooded just 6 years after he was buried. I guess ancient Egyptians didn't check the weather forecast. His wife and half-sister, Queen Hatshepsut, may have been the one who moved him. Maybe she was trying to keep him safe, or maybe she needed extra space for her own tomb. Either way, an inscription found near the first tomb hints that hubby was relocated to somewhere nearby in the Valley of the Kings. Now, Litherland and his team have their hands full. Digging this secondary tomb out by hand is their only option, since tunneling in was deemed too dangerous. So, while the rest of us complain about sitting too much, these guys are out there removing an entire mountain by hand. You gotta give them some respect for that. The first tomb they found had all the hallmarks of a royal burial. When they peeked inside, the decor screamed, "Pharaoh was here!" The ceiling was painted blue with yellow stars, something strictly reserved for the tombs of pharaohs. Litherland told the BBC he was overwhelmed by the discovery. He said, and I quote, "The emotion of getting into these things is just one of extraordinary bewilderment. I can't even imagine what it must be like to step foot in the tomb of a pharaoh for the first time in 3,500 years." For those who need a refresher, Thutmose II was best known as the husband of the legendary Queen Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's few female pharaohs who ruled in her own right. They also happened to be an ancestor of the famous King Tut. Considering Hatshepsut was Thutmose's sister, you get the gist that ruling Egypt ran in the family. Quite literally. I should mention one more thing because it's kind of a big deal. Thutmose II's mummy is currently being stored at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. It was found in the Deir el-Bahari cache above the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut in 1886. It was thought that someone removed it from the pharaoh's tomb for some unknown reason. However, with all this new and exciting action, Egyptologists are wondering if maybe they have the wrong body. Maybe Thutmose II's real mummy is in the new tomb that Litherland is currently digging up. Whatever happens, Origins Explained is here to keep you up to date on everything, so be sure to subscribe. Litherland is about to make a huge discovery at the bottom of the mountain of rubble once he finally gets there. And I, for one, cannot wait for another ancient mystery: the ultimate sarcophagus. Forget treasure chests. This is the kind of discovery archaeologists dream about. Deep beneath the sands of Saqqara, a team of researchers has uncovered a massive pink granite sarcophagus. You won't believe who it belonged to. This sarcophagus was found in its original burial chamber in pristine condition and covered in intricate hieroglyphs. Thanks to the hieroglyphs, we know exactly who the tomb belonged to. Imagine if all ancient tombs and megaliths had this information. The owner of this tomb was Ptah-em-Wea. Okay, I admit that Ptah-em-Wea isn't exactly a household name in 2025, but 3,300 years ago, he was a big deal. This guy was a high-ranking official who served as head of the treasury under the rule of Ramses the Great. And Ramses was maybe the best pharaoh of them all. Otherwise, they would call him Ramses the OK. Led by Professor Ola El-Agwizi from Cairo University, the excavation team didn't just stroll into the burial chamber like you might walk into an open cave. They had to dig through tons of sand and lower themselves 23 feet underground in a giant metal bucket. Now that's my kind of adventure. Once inside, they found the massive sarcophagus waiting for them, its inscriptions perfectly matching those on the tomb walls. Professor El-Agwizi explained that the hieroglyphs on the sarcophagus certify Ptah-em-Wea was a nobleman very close to the king. Ptah-em-Wea wasn't just some accountant, he was ancient Egypt's equivalent of a minister of finance. He had access to all the gold. But there is more to this discovery than just finding an old Egyptian miser. Finding the sarcophagus in its original tomb is incredibly rare in Saqqara, mostly because of tomb robbers. Robbers have had over 3,000 years to steal everything. It's actually a miracle there's anything left at all. Ancient looters had the same priorities as modern ones and pilfered most of Saqqara's tombs. Plus, have you ever heard of tomb recycling? Burial chambers were often reused over the centuries, leaving little of the original contents behind. When a tomb is found in Egypt, chances are it's had a half-dozen occupants since it was first carved. But somehow, Ptah-em-Wea's sarcophagus survived intact. And what a great stone box it is! The sarcophagus is a masterpiece of New Kingdom craftsmanship. Carved from pink granite, it features stunning engravings of gods, protective prayers, and intricate artwork. The sky goddess Nut is spread across the lid, her open wings symbolizing protection for the deceased. The 4 sons of Horus surround the sarcophagus, ensuring Ptah-em-Wea's safe passage to the afterlife. A finely detailed portrait of the man himself is carved into the surface, complete with a false beard because fashion was eternal. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little self-conscious about my ultimate resting place. Should I start preparing now? Do you think a boring wooden coffin is enough? Or do you want to be buried in the ultimate pharaonic style like our friend Ptah-em-Wea? A fearsome predator. Egypt is so much more than dusty blocks and amazing history. It's more than rich culture, ancient traditions, and puzzling megaliths. Egypt is also home to monsters. Archaeologists in Egypt have just unearthed the skull of a 30-million-year-old apex predator. And let me just say, you wouldn't have wanted to meet this thing in a dark prehistoric alley. Meet Bastetodon, a fearsome leopard-sized carnivore with razor-sharp teeth, a bone-crushing bite, and an appetite for pretty much anything that moved. Its diet included early elephants, hippos, and primates. I didn't realize that primates and hippos were part of the basic food groups. If you recognized its name, good on you. Bastetodon was named after the Egyptian goddess Bastet. She was the goddess of protection, pleasure, and good health, which is kind of ironic considering that this creature spent its life dismembering its prey. This isn't even the first time scientists named a prehistoric predator after an Egyptian deity. Another creature called Sekhmetops was named after the lion-headed goddess Sekhmet, the deity of war and wrath. That seems fitting considering Sekhmetops was a lion-sized, flesh-eating monster. Paleontologist Shourouk Al-Ashkar was the leader of the group behind the discovery. He said that everyone was about to wrap up their work when suddenly, at the very last minute, a team member spotted something remarkable. He saw a set of large teeth sticking out of the ground. Rule number 1 of paleontology: when you see big teeth in the sand, you stop everything and start digging. What they uncovered was an almost complete skull belonging to an ancient predator called a hyenodonts, a group of carnivorous mammals that ruled African ecosystems after the extinction of the dinosaurs. And trust me, these things made modern lions look like house cats. Bestetodon was part of a long lineage of top-tier killers that once dominated Africa. Sekhmetops and Bestetodon are both part of the African hyenodont family. Bestetodon wasn't even the biggest of its kind. In 2019, scientists working with Dr. Matthew Borth discovered Simbakubwa kutokafrika, a hyenodont so big it dwarfed a polar bear. Today, lions and hyenas are the undisputed kings of the African savanna, but millions of years ago, hyenodonts like Bestetodon were the true rulers. Maybe scientists should bring these ferocious felines back to life instead of the woolly mammoth. Maybe both? What do you think? A pyramid opened for the first time. They expected a pharaoh's treasure, a glimpse into ancient glory. Instead, they found a crime scene. In the world of Egyptology, there is nothing quite like the thrill of opening a sealed ancient pyramid for the first time in thousands of years. It's the kind of moment that makes archaeologists giddy with excitement, but it's also the kind of thing that doesn't really happen these days. Most pyramids have already been explored and looted. So, when a long-lost pyramid was discovered buried under the sands of Dashur, the excitement was through the roof. But what happened next left even the experts completely baffled. Dashur is an ancient royal necropolis famous for its pyramids, though only a few remain standing today. The rest are either collapsed, buried by sand, or lost to history. The new pyramid was first uncovered by quarry workers who stumbled upon finely cut blocks of limestone hidden beneath the desert. They immediately called in Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and soon enough, a full-scale excavation was underway. British Egyptologist Dr. Chris Naunton was on the forefront of the excavation. He described the newly discovered site as looking like a lunar landscape, eerie, desolate, and very, very old. Thanks to Smithsonian Channel's documentary Mystery of the Lost Pyramid, the excavation was documented step by step. First, they discovered a staircase leading deep underground. Then they found a series of massive limestone blocks, placed there to protect the burial chamber. And then, the big moment. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities gave the green light to open the pyramid for the first time in nearly 4,000 years. This was a big day for the world. A sealed pyramid chamber is rarer than finding a unicorn, so pretty rare. Using a lever system, the archaeologists lifted the capstone that had sealed the burial chamber for millennia, and everyone gasped. Archaeologists expected treasure. Instead, they found chaos. The burial chamber was a complete mess. Artifacts overturned, remains scattered, and zero signs of treasure. An apparently sealed, unbreached buried chamber turned out to be a crime scene. It was apparent from the first glimpse inside that someone had gotten there first. But who and when? After careful analysis, researchers determined that the remains in the burial chamber belonged to an unknown Egyptian royal named Princess Hatshepsut, not to be confused with the more famous Pharaoh Hatshepsut. This was a different person in the 13th dynasty. Dr. Naunton and his team believe the pyramid was looted before it was sealed shut. Looters must have ransacked the burial chamber while the pyramid was still under construction. Once the damage was done, workers went ahead and sealed the tomb anyway, locking their crime inside. Nobody checked if the burial was intact. They simply slapped on the capstone and called it a day. Dr. Naunton describes it as the perfect crime. Archaeologists had the amazing pleasure of opening up what was basically a vault that had been robbed and then buried without anyone knowing. Were Egyptians black or white? It's time to settle one of history's most heated and controversial debates. What race were the ancient Egyptians? Were they sub-Saharan Africans, Middle Eastern, or Nordic? Yes, some people have argued that the Egyptians came from the same place as the Vikings, but more on that in a sec. For decades, Egyptologists and scholars have been throwing down over this issue, while certain groups have even tried to claim that King Tut was a Viking. People have cited Egyptian artwork, statues, descriptions, and texts, but no one could ever agree. One of the biggest roadblocks to solving the mystery has been DNA technology. Scientists believe it was impossible to extract usable DNA from Egyptian mummies. Between the scorching desert heat, tomb humidity, and the ancient Egyptians' extremely extra embalming techniques, researchers thought any remaining genetic material was toast. But we're in the future now, and nothing is impossible. Using cutting-edge techniques, a team of international researchers cracked the code and successfully sequenced mummy DNA. What they found is that the ancient Egyptians were most closely related to Near Eastern peoples, especially from the Levant, meaning Turkey, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. Cleopatra herself was Macedonian Greek, belonging to the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was founded by Ptolemy I Soter, a general of Alexander the Great. If you're wondering why this is such a big deal, it has to do with where Egypt is. On the tip of Africa, a mere hike away from Israel, Egypt is technically part of Africa. But the Egyptian people have never really identified as Africans. Science confirming their DNA comes from the Levant shows the Egyptians have more genetically in common with people in Turkey than in Nigeria. Interestingly, the study found that modern Egyptians share about 8% of their genome with Central Africans, much more than their ancient counterparts. Researchers think Egyptians began mingling with sub-Saharan Africans about 1,500 years ago due to trade, migration, and the trans-Saharan slave trade. There's one other thing to take into consideration. Over the centuries, the land of the pharaohs got conquered more times than your little cousin playing Call of Duty. Alexander the Great, the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs, everyone wanted a piece of the Nile pie. You would think the Egyptian population would have become a mixed bag, but it didn't. Despite all these invasions, genetic analysis by the Max Planck Institute shows that the DNA of Egyptians remained relatively stable for over 1,300 years. Being ruled by a foreign power didn't give the Egyptian genes a makeover. Johann Krauss extracted DNA from 90 mummies to get these results. He and his team focused on bones and teeth, since those hold up better over time, and ran the samples through high-tech sequencing techniques that sound straight out of a sci-fi movie. The results showed clear genetic continuity in Egypt for centuries, with the oldest mummy dating to 1388 BC and the youngest from 426 AD. That is a huge time span, yet the DNA remained pretty consistent. The takeaway here is that ancient Egypt was a cosmopolitan empire with strong ties to the Near East. Thanks to advancements in genetic research, scientists are getting closer to painting a full picture of who these legendary people really were. The genes show they weren't exactly Africans, and they definitely weren't Nordic.
Thanks for watching. Which discovery was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon. Bye!